Good morning once again. It is 6:31. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station on this, wow, can you believe it's April 2nd, Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Again, April 2nd, 2020. It's 41 degrees right now. It's going to get up to 54. It's clear. We'll give you all the weather as we follow. Okay, let's look at the headlines. Corona deaths in New York are projected at 16,000 or more. Some New York patients are being moved upstate, including here in Westchester and elsewhere. The governor shut the city playgrounds down in New York City and elsewhere, but he's not closing the parks. And here in Westchester, 64 have died already as the county halts the practice of sharing town totals. Andrew Cuomo's order to hospitals: expand capacity or face a state takeover. Regeneron here began shipping new COVID-19 test kits. We have a lot more. We go to the national level. The president says that we have to prepare for a tough fall coming up. Also, he says the government is looking to building 2 new hospital ships. Those stories and much, much more coming up. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am here. You stay right there as we get ready for the weather. And the weather, as always, is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. As we noted earlier, it's 41 degrees. It's clear outside. It's going to get up to the mid-50s today, but we will have that sunshine for a while. The wind will be out of the northwest, 15 to 25 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The temperature 42, and on into Friday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. More showers. Sorry. The high will be 55. The overnight low will be 41, and on into Saturday, partly sunny, the high 56 and overnight low 40. And Sunday, mostly cloudy, a high of 60 degrees. We'll share Monday with you a little bit later as well as we get ready to go through the news now. It is 6:35, and this half hour is promoted by pluginvirtualreality.com, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Aging Issues Management. Go to their website, especially now, with the kinds of problems that we're having economically. All of us are. That is what they do, particularly if you're getting up there in years. Again, 6:35, and we'll go to the news. Welcome once again, even as I spill coffee on myself. That's the beauty of live radio, TV, streaming, whatever you want to call it. Welcome to the program. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone, heard on, of course, RadioWestchester.com. The show title, Mornings with Bob Marrone. We're available on MyTuner Radio, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and of course, we stream live across Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, probably something else that I forgot to mention. Welcome to the program. Let's get right down to the news. Governor Andrew Cuomo yesterday, that's April 1st, by the way, it was April 1st, and it's no joke, spoke about what life will be like in a post-coronavirus world, which is likely a few months away. That was the sobering projection Cuomo displayed yesterday as the coronavirus death toll in New York approached 2,000, and New York City hospitals started shipping patients for the first time upstate. He based his remarks off a modeling done by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, founded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that estimated about 100,000 deaths nationwide as the virus spreads across the country. Now, the predictions on the low end of what the federal officials have estimated, which have suggested the death total could reach 240,000 without expanded precautions. And Cuomo even wondered aloud if 16,000 deaths is the estimate right now, by the way, is a low estimate, considering about half of the fatalities have already been here in this state. 637. The governor also stomped into Mayor de Blasio's sandbox yesterday and did what the mayor has refused to do, order all city playgrounds closed to stem the spread of the virus. And he went on to say that I've talked about it for weeks. A fed-up Cuomo has said, I warned people. He didn't want to have to make it law, but now he has done that. Now, the governor has not, however, has not closed parks. Now, playgrounds are obviously the way the kids go on those slides and go back and forth, and some other activities take place, go back and forth on the swings, etc. And kids were congregating anyway. Parents were congregating anyway. And we're seeing a lot of that in a lot of cities. We heard just yesterday, or rather it was the day before, from Sean Patterson Howard, how in her city, she, if she could, would have even made the curfews tighter, because a lot of people continue to congregate on street corners, play dice, those kinds of things. But clearly, they want to really, as we start ramping up now and the curve starts going upwards, they want to take every effort to minimize the impact of what the apex of this crisis is expected to be. 64 Westchester County residents have died from the virus-related symptoms as confirmed cases topped 10,000. This county executive George Latimer said yesterday. Now, the total is more than double the total of deaths reported by the county just the day before, although Latimer said that was due to reporting lag, not because 39 people died in the last 24 hours. He also had been holding daily briefings and sharing the local number of confirmed cases by town, but said yesterday he would not share the latest town-by-town data because of the lag and cases reported by New York State and the county confirming them. Now they reside in a place that will all reside in some future date. There are 226 county residents hospitalized as we speak, folks, for the sickness related to this outbreak. I'm just wondering, when you see a place like, after Hezi Harris is reporting about how Yonkers has been trying to tamp down the information coming out of that city, I'm wondering if they were complaining because they reached the top of the list. Just saying. Healthy skepticism, not cynicism, is a good thing. Hospitals across New York are erecting tents, reworking underused space, and doubling up rooms, all in hopes of adding beds as the number of confirmed coronavirus cases continues its rapid rise. Governor Andrew Cuomo has ordered each of the state's 200-plus hospitals to put together plans to increase bed capacity by at least 50%, though he's asking them to try and double it. That order is a major part of Cuomo's coronavirus response plan, which will require hospital leaders to make significant changes as the state tries to increase the total bed capacity from 53,000 to 140,000. Now, he also had said, he threatened that the hospitals are being cooperative, but if they're not, he may take matters into his own hands and use his executive authority to compel them. It is 6:40. Well, there's positive news and some good news that needs to be talked about here, too. One of them is coming out of Regeneron today. Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that Tarrytown-based Regeneron has begun shipping hundreds of thousands of testing kits. The governor added he will now close down New York City playgrounds, open spaces, as we said. A grim new estimate funded by the Gates Foundation, again, said 16,000 people. But the real thing here is Regeneron has started to ship those tests as we pass through. Now, 6:41. People are messing up our name, or at least the Westchester County's name, according to a story by Lohud, who gave us all of our opening stories this morning, and we thank them. Call it the Westchester something something, is the way Mark Lingariello, who's a guest on this program from time to time, said. The small municipal arena, the Westchester County Center, has been thrust into the national spotlight, but the governor and president can't seem to get its name right. When Governor Cuomo announced hospital beds could be built at the spot known locally for its reptile expo, he called it the Westchester Convention Center. That led to the county center becoming the convention center, and news reports in New York City and behind. Then on Monday, beyond rather, then on Monday, President Trump used a new name during the briefing from the Rose Garden. All right, everybody, it's the Westchester County Center. It's not that complicated, but these men are busy. Men and women are busy right now. All right, it is 6:42. While people stay home during the virus outbreak, some are fighting a war of their own addiction. Jesse McCarthy is a recovering alcoholic and says that world isn't the same as it was a few weeks ago. Alcoholic Anonymous, for instance, now uses virtual meetings, emails, phone, and social media. Now, it is helping people who are trying to avoid idle time at home, which can quickly spiral into overthinking and cause people to slip into a grim past. And so they're having a tough time. And what they're saying is when you're feeling down, pick up a phone, call another alcoholic, pick up the big book if that is what you use, go to a meeting. And those are the things that you could do instead of picking up the phone. But right now, meetings are more accessible than they are when the world is normal. That's the good news because of virtual contact and social media. And they're also telling some folks, and that's why the parks are still open, and one of the reasons is get out, look at nature. But one of the interesting things that notes in that story is alcoholics, addicts of other stripes, even people with certain forms of dementia, not dementia, but depression. The issue becomes looking back. The issue becomes the things that maybe drove you, or the childhood that drove you to drinking or depression, or the horrible events in your life, the death of someone you loved, or the loss of family for whatever reason. And then for many people who've moved to drugs, they've committed crimes or done things they're very sorry about or hurt other people. And it's very hard to move on when you keep obsessing about the past. And so the concern is that people who have idle time will recall those things or those events or those tragedies in their lives, and then be unable to break that cycle. Many of us who've been down those roads know what those things are like. So if you've got an alcoholic or an addict or somebody like that in your family, get them out of their head. Idle time is their enemy. It is 6:44. Let's take a look at Rockland County now. Ed Day wants police and inspectors across the state to enforce the governor's executive orders to contain the virus. Excuse me. This is not a virus. I ate one of these healthy nut things. What are they called? Trail mix. The little peanut piece keeps rolling around in my mouth, and I'm going to mispronounce words. Hey, this is live. You wanted this, and I really wanted to do it. Coming up now on 6:45. Rockland County Executive Ed Day again wants police and inspectors to start enforcing the rules. You see 20 people on a street corner, break them up. You see kids playing on the rides at the playgrounds, break them up. Day said without enforcement muscle, the governor's orders lack meaning. The two-term Republican county executive also said Democrat Mayor Andrew Cuomo's orders lack clarity on what's permitted, such as what constitutes a large gathering. Well, that's kind of true. Day, a retired NYPD commander and Baltimore chief of detectives, said police are unable to break up gatherings. He said the governor's rule only states that non-essential gatherings of individuals for any reasons. And that is a kind of that's difficult. And Day, God bless him, he's outspoken, he's courageous, he's a good county executive, but he's looking for specificity. I don't know that that's really going to come, but who knows? We'll see how he and the governor get along, and they do, but on that issue. Meanwhile, the budget is still out there, and the budget is taking a hammering, particularly because the withholding, when they withhold money from your checks, and you say, why? Well, that's so they can run the government during the year on a day-by-day basis, and so there are no withholdings, or very little. There are no sales tax revenues and some of the other things that go on from tickets and everything else. So governments are hurting, and the state government is really hurting. Governor Andrew Cuomo said yesterday he has to deal with the legislative leaders, or has a deal on a budget for the state's new fiscal year, which comes as the state faces an unprecedented crisis that we know. Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie began briefing the members on the tentative deal. Voting resumed yesterday afternoon and was expected to continue well into the night. They reflected the coronavirus era. Few lawmakers were actually present, with most voting remotely to conform with social distancing guidelines. Now, one of the things that they expect is going to come out of this, well, two things. One is that there will very likely not be a marijuana legalization law this year. To do that would require to fund certain rules and et cetera, et cetera. And it's just not going to happen. Now, a story that just came in late this morning, or should we say early this morning, depending on your point of view, and we're reaching out to Damon Jones. We expect him to get him on the show yesterday. He's the publisher of Black Westchester magazine, but he's also in addition to occasionally radio guesting and being in the civil rights movement, he is a corrections officer many years, and we hope to get him on the next, maybe later today or sometime tomorrow, to talk about this. But 23 Westchester County Jail employees and 6 inmates have tested positive. And that's going to be a sticky wicket because those people are living in close quarters reasonably. And we will talk with Damon when we can about what ought to be done. And as for right now, it is 6:48, coming up on 6:49. We're going to go back to the weather, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some other issues. That ship that's was out at sea is going to be docking today, I think in Guam. We'll talk about what the president wants to do. Speaking of ships, building 2 new ships. Doctors are beginning now to offer some reasons for hope, and we'll talk a little bit about that, about what the positives are that are evolving. You know, when you can see the top of the mountain, as scary as it is, you also know that you get to go down the other side, folks. It is now 6:50. The weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted America's best rehabilitation, one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. It is 41 and clear right now. We're going to see some sunshine this morning before we get up to 54, but later on we'll have increasing clouds, and tonight the temperature will drop to 42. Friday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers, a high of 55. The overnight low will be 41. Saturday, partly sunny, the high 56 degrees, again getting down to 40 at night. Sunday, mostly cloudy, the high 60 degrees. The overnight low will be 43. They're so precise in that, but you know, they're pretty good at it, actually. You got to give them their due. As we head towards the top of the hour, now somewhere here in my pile of goodies, I have today's lineup. Vince's going to join us at 7:20. We're going to try and open up the phones around 7 o'clock, so if you're interested in that, you may want to write the phone number down, 914-999-4006, 999-4006. And we will, as I knock papers all over the place, we will be talking with Vince and then John Bailey, get a report from White Plains. We'll also then talk with a woman by the name of Allison Lake, who's doing wonderful things for children in our area. So she's part of Westchester Children's Association. It's a nonprofit, and they are struggling as all the other nonprofits are. So we will talk with her about how to manage our children during this crisis. Also, Andy Spano joins us, and then we'll talk with our friends from Choice. And you know we're going to get Jake in there. He's sequestered at home, as you might expect. This is Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. It is 6:51. Welcome back. Not that I went anywhere. That's just radio language because I took a break. We never go anywhere. We're right here. We're in these 4 sealed, or 5. It's a 5-walled radio station. A studio here. Your radio station at the train station here in New Rochelle. And it's fascinating. Every day, less and less numbers of people walk by our windows. I don't even need to open them up anymore except for the doorway. There's nothing to see because there's nobody here. But we are here. And unfortunately, we've been arranging guests, and some want to come in person. They can't do that right now. We're also talking with others who will be part of the program. They can't be here either, but we're going to work out getting them on. Now, the president said yesterday, and this is the kind of planning that will make life easier in the future as we go down these roads. He's thinking of building 2 new hospital ships. This even as he resists the call for nationwide stay-at-home orders. But that's a good idea, Mr. President. And the next time we have to go through something like this, we will be prepared for it. Let's look at some of the hopeful stuff that's out there. Scientists offered glimmers of hope, but some, nonetheless, for progress in the war against the coronavirus Wednesday, with breakthroughs ranging from antibody blockers to tobacco paste. Tobacco. You can get back on tobacco-based immunity shops. In one promising discovery, San Francisco doctor Jacob Glanville, who was featured in the Netflix documentary Pandemic, by the way, tweeted that he and his team have found a candidate cure that will soon be tested by U.S. military. Glanville, who runs the biotech company Distributed Bio, tweeted that the immune system boosting antibody therapy works by blocking the coronavirus from infecting human cells, and they're testing that. Meanwhile, Chinese scientists have isolated several antibodies that are extremely effective at blocking the virus as well. British American Tobacco said Kentucky Bioprocessing uses a cloned part of the virus's genetic sequence to make antigens that can be inserted into tobacco plants for reproduction. And in Iceland, of all places, a new study offered hope for fighting the virus through mass testing. Researchers have tested some 17,900 residents of the island nation, many of whom were self-selected, and found that roughly 50% were symptom-free, people who had the virus. What it means in his mind, that is the doctor who did this study, that because we are screening the general population, we are catching people early in the infection cycle. Also, they are having some success. There has been this issue back and forth. The president came out and mentioned it. He took some heat, but he wasn't, a lot of that heat was unfair. It wasn't the cure, and it certainly hasn't been tested, but it's enough. But even as Dr. Fauci said, and he has been credited for some reason with having said, no, don't do it, he said it has not been clinically tested. It's not a good idea since it hasn't been proven to save people yet to do it, except for compassionate use. And that is what the president was talking about, obviously, and that's where we are now. And where it is being used compassionately is it has had some success. So they're working on it. And right here in New Rochelle, we here became famous around the country in a way we did not want to be for having the first real intense outbreak here emanating from the Young Israel Temple, because the first person who had it went to services there one day, and a lot of other people got it. Well, and this is one of the things I need to talk about this county. As really an outsider here, came here some 15 years ago, 20 now for business. And that is the incredible number of people who have this volunteerism, all these organizations that we have, food banks, Volunteer New York, a whole organization sprung out of really what is essentially, that is a Westchester-driven group, believe me. All kinds of things. And I know because I get to MC a lot of their events. I don't know where that comes from here. I don't know if it's because it's a very diverse county, but a huge chunk of it is very well-to-do. But the well-to-do communities, the well-to-do people, the people on the other end of the spectrum, they all work together to do these things. At any rate, the reason I say that is they have stepped forward. Members of the Young Israel congregation have stepped forward to who've been tested and been found to have had the virus, but either had no symptoms or already over them. They're giving blood to see if study of the plasma in their blood will help in the development of antigens to fight the virus. That was absolutely no zip. It was news because it's nice that they did it, but it was no surprise to me, no surprise at all. It's just something that I've always found very interesting. I grew up in the city in Brooklyn, And Brooklyn's wonderful for 1,000 different things, but I am embarrassed to say, but when you live in those kinds of densely populated areas, I can't even remember, other than being in the Cub Scouts, civic organizations, or the church bake sales, that had any kind of intense volunteering. And I'm sure they existed, but again, I was blind to them, either because I was too busy being selfish or didn't realize it. But I was not aware of that. I was never aware of who my councilman was. Occasionally, my congressperson. It wasn't until I got much older that I realized how important all these things were. But again, throttling back to the notion of volunteering, really, this is a terrific county, and those people up at Young Israel, thank you very much on behalf of those who don't have a microphone and can't tell you themselves. Thanks. And in fact, there's one woman, she's retiring this year. She has done such an extraordinary job with volunteer in New York, Elisa Keston. She'll be retiring this year from that, and what a loss, but she has created lots of deputy Elisa Kestons. So anyway, thank all of you who do that, and that's just a thank you I owe this county for some time now. We're coming up on 7 o'clock. Vice President Mike Pence ordered a review of aid procedures to other countries after a Trump administration staffer requested medical gear from Thailand. Well, that's a personal problem. Only to find out the United States has just sent supplies there. Pence, who's leading the White House task force efforts, placed a moratorium on overseas shipments of the United States, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the point. In fact, I was asked this yesterday by a listener. How can we be sending supplies to countries and then buying supplies from them? And that is the classic case. And this, don't go blaming the president for this now, please. That's bureaucratic. The right hand not knowing what the left is doing. In fact, you'll recall Holland and Ohm and I having a rare disagreement yesterday on how some companies are just horribly run down in the trenches. And the senior management, we will always tell you what's run right, because a lot of them have never been down when you've got 10 people who don't even feel like coming to work today, or you knew you got a promotion you didn't deserve because you were good at stacking paper, but you couldn't handle people for your life, and yet they put you in that. You know what I'm talking about, because you've been there. That's why Dilbert is famous. You got to read Dilbert. Before you go back, by the way, to any of the corporate jobs, please go out and go to the bookstore. Well, you can't go on Amazon, buy some of the Dilbert books. You will see yourself and your bosses there. Trust me. All righty, let us move on. A guy wrote a nice piece in the Post about Keep Hope Alive, was John Porterhertz, and he is, of course, a columnist, a center-right columnist in the New York Post and other outlets. And he's sequestered in his apartment with his wife. They both work, and some kids. And it's a 1,400 or 1,300 square foot apartment in New York, which is to say, it's probably really 1,000, as he noted. But he said that one of the nice things about Cuomo's press conferences is that he's trying to keep hope alive, and that's the title of his column. Keep hope alive, Governor. Constant gloom is demoralizing and dangerous. Hence, again, over the last couple of days, because it's our job to do that as well, to tell you what's going on, and when we have to. And this is what we're trying to balance here. The government, and through us, the media, is trying with great difficulty to give you the news and keep you informed so that you will be, appropriately cautious and scared in the good way, but also to try and put it in context. Because once again, and this is his point, we're headed towards the apex. It's like anything else in life. If you're going in for surgery, you go and you ramp up, and they go in, and maybe if it's your upper body, they have to shave part of you, and then they start giving you drugs, and they tell you can't eat, and then you get closer to surgery, and they have to do some prep work, and they draw blood, and the operation is close at hand. And you'll have the surgery, much as we will, that apex they talk about, and then you'll start to get better. This crisis is no different than, it's like what we do here in this business, the story arc. It's going to get bad. This is going to work. It's going to worse. It's going to be. Now with surgery, for anyone who's ever had a surgery recently, it's always the next day that's worse than the surgery. So let's call that the apex in this case. It's like, oh my God, why did I do this? I was perfectly fine before I asked them to put in a new hip. Now I hurt. I can't eat. I can't walk. I can't move. but then you get better. And that's really the story here, as is the numerical story, and that's what we're fighting. Of the 100% of people who exist in this country, 80% will have, not, of course, they'll have relatives and friends, but 80% it will not touch you. 20%, or even if it does, you won't be aware that it did, or even if you're tested, you won't be aware that it did anything to you. And the other 20%, pardon me, is a mixed bag. Most of that group, and if you're in that group, you will get it, and you will have moderate to severe symptoms, and you wouldn't even need a hospital. Some of you will need a hospital, and you'll come home. And a small percentage of that 20 will not. And we can't even know what that percentage is because we haven't tested everybody. We keep saying it's 1.5%, it's 2%, it's 3%. We don't know. Maybe after we test everyone, it will be as low as the virus. Probably not. But again, because there is no antidote or no treatment for it yet, and it's a new virus, we're seeing it all happen at one time, and it's become very, very scary. But had it taken a more protracted event, in other words, if it went like this, it would be less impactful. But it goes like that, and it's that peak that is making it so egregious of a problem. Anyway, we have a call, and we want to get to the telephone, and we're grateful for that. It is 7:03. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Good morning, Bob. It's Lorraine Carl. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, Lorraine?
I'm fine, thanks. I just have 3 questions or observations.
Sure, please.
First of all, what is the rule about parks? Because last night when I was taking a walk, I saw a family at the playground on Stevenson, another family playing ball, a group of young men playing football. So I don't know what the rules are.
Well, we haven't, here it's less clear. They haven't issued the edict that the governor did in New York City, because as I reread the story, it says New York City. And I have to be honest, of course, I'm not sure, but I hope to find out by the end of the show. I'm going to call Latimer's office, and maybe he'll even call in.
Because I'm sure the parents that had the children on the swings and stuff are not going to wipe down the swings.
No, and I'm sure that I believe that the playgrounds are closed here already, because when you go to them, they're empty, and/or you see some tape up. But I will find out. So I will call Latimer today. I'll call him during the break. Yes.
My observation when I was on the train, there were lots of people with scrubs on. Either they were coming home from their job, or they were going to the hospital.
Yep.
But they were wearing their scrubs. And I hope during this time that people must leave their scrubs at the hospital or at home, because that's not very sanitary, number one. And if they're working in the hospital and they come in contact with people who have the disease, this isn't too good. To be on public transportation or whatever. But even before that, I always thought it wasn't. And I saw it in the city loads of times, people with scrubs on getting lunch and then going back into the hospital. This just isn't too sanitary.
Well, I will check that out. I have to bark up a different tree, but that shouldn't be too difficult.
Right.
So that's 2.
The third one is
a lot of work
comment.
Here. Please.
Your 9 o'clock guest yesterday, he likened President Trump to Marie Antoinette.
Yes.
Which to me made absolutely
well, what he was talking about is the whole notion of, let them eat cake. They got to do what
I
they
understand,
have to do.
But this was a young girl who was practically ripped from her country, right? Had to forget everything that she ever went through in her childhood. I mean, she was a child herself. Had to leave her clothing, her jewelry, her dog behind and become French. And the French people did not like her from the get-go.
Well, that's true. Yes.
Pardon me?
Absolutely. Everything you're saying is absolutely true. Yes.
And she had to marry this idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, she was left to her own devices. And, I mean, you see they had to have sex in front of the whole court. I mean, it's just...
I didn't get that movie, but anyway, go ahead.
No, you didn't? But it's just, I mean, because people do certain things, yes, let them eat cake. That's a very famous saying. But what people go through, I mean, look at Meghan Markle.
Yeah, by the way, since you went down this road, I'm glad
Yes,
you did, and I hope you agree. You obviously like literature. I love the book Anna Karenina, except it held to something novelists do that I don't like. There had to be a consequence for her breaking certain codes. She had every right to cheat on that creep. She was a slave. She, for all intent and purpose, he was miserable to her, and he could have given us a happy ending, but he didn't.
well,
You know the book I'm talking about, right? The
yes,
Russian, yeah.
yes.
She should not. She was totally within her right to get away from that guy. But then women had. That's why I go on and on about women's rights. You all had no rights back then. You were
Right.
property.
And I mean, if you've ever been in contact with a Russian woman who just came over from Russia,
Yeah.
they, and with maybe a husband, they embrace the country. I mean, they just go out there full force. Where the men, I think, stay home and drink because they can't handle.
Hey, we have a lot of that in this country.
Right,
Well,
but
you've
I
heard
mean,
me, Rail.
Russian women and even Japanese women, when they come over with their husbands, are just in love with America. They have such freedom. It's unbelievable, and I think we don't realize it as women
Well,
who
there's
were
this.
born into this.
It's funny. Well, that's very true, but still, we have a lot more to do for women as we go forward. But what's interesting is if you spend a fair amount of time as Asia, and I did in the 90s. You'll pardon me, I can't remember the years. The Japanese women and the Chinese women are very different, or they were back in the
Yes.
90s. The Chinese women are used to running things; they're very outspoken, and the Japanese women demur more. But it is changing, and that is a good thing. But now, and whereas now Asian women come and they like America because hey, I can come and do a business, I can come and make something happen. But you raise a lot of good points. But even in this country, what bothers me when you get to do the news, certain things grow on you, and you see a pattern.
Hmm.
Every time some kid gets arrested and he's being arraigned, his mother came to pick him up.
Yes.
He got shot. His mother went to the hospital. He is a truant. His mother. Where in God, men, I'm listening. I'm one of you. We are a disgrace to our sex. In that,
Yes.
I don't care if you had the kid out of wedlock. Be a dad. You write a check. Don't just go on to the rest of the planet. I have nothing but contempt for that.
Well,
Sorry.
I think we do a very poor job in educating young men. I mean, you see it at the high school, they're very concerned if girls get pregnant and have to give them birth control. But, they didn't do this alone.
Well,
There's
no, that's
somebody.
true. But yeah, it's a wrongheadedness on all sides, sure.
Yes, yes. I
But,
think if we are more conscious that it takes two
oh, yeah, I
and
forgot
to
about
treat
that.
both equally.
You're being pretty smart,
Well, sometimes.
I need this. It's early in the morning, Lorraine. How are you handling being cooped up with John? Or would you rather?
Well, he goes out to work.
Oh, that's right, because he's in a business
Yes.
he's needed.
But he does come home earlier than usual. But see,
You
I'm
sound
not home
thrilled.
when he usually comes home.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
now
when
you are.
I was
But
working.
you sound thrilled about this.
We had a Zoom. Is it Zoom? Or meeting.
You had a
with work.
Zumo?
No, with
Oh,
work.
oh, oh.
At 4:30, our director asked that we all call in for a happy hour. And
I'm worried about you. I'm Zooming. I have a happy hour. I'm coming over to your house.
and everybody was doing shots.
That's it. I talked to my daughter yesterday. She and her husband are microbiologists, right? So they're like totally. Their house is. I think it's probably got a plastic tape around it. But the kids are in that. They are going nuts. And I heard my son-in-law say, "I want to play catch. We can't go out. I want to play catch. Can't go out. I want to play catch. I'm getting. I'm going to be part of this." But some people there are going to be mass. There's going to be what's that thing? There will be blood. That's the movie.
Either that, or we'll have a lot of babies born 9 months from now.
That's what I'm hoping for. This opportunity springs eternal.
But there's too many kids home, so I mean.
Well, I even said that. I said to my daughter, "Well, why aren't you and your husband? There's kids everywhere." I said, "I guess so." See, my idea, and you may have heard me with Mike Duffy the other day, the former police officer. I said, "You're a cop. Put him under arrest and lock him in the basement for about an hour." You know.
Well, I mean, it's a hard time. I think people think that just because we're going through this, everything has to be normal. They're not really looking deeply into this. That maybe, I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe there's a reason that we have to slow down, that we have to recognize what we have rather than what we don't have. It's just. I'm trying to use it as a lesson.
Well, it will have that benefit also. I'm one of the few people alive, I think, because of the hectic life I tend to live. I'm enjoying it. Oh, for real, because there are certain things I can't do, so I don't have to run around. I get to spend more office time and get stuff done for my business, which now is in great peril because of this. But social media and the way we live is going to save us, but we're also hopefully going to learn to not be slaves to it. I mean, I've said this a million times, and people think I'm kidding. The day I'm off the air, I go get a flip phone.
Well, I went to one of the senior grocery hours.
Yeah.
And there was a man in front of me, and he said, "Oh, people are going crazy." And he said to me, "Aren't you happy you're the generation who drank water through a hose?" He said, "We built up all immunity."
This is true. I used to play, well, I still do, but I used to play hockey in this great league back when it was barbaric. And we played in this park in Borough Park, Brooklyn. And now this goes back to the 60s. And people are going to be appalled. My microbiologist daughter would probably string herself up. You could just have a fight with a guy, but all they had, and the penalty box was on either side of this rusty pail of water with a ladle that had leaves in it. And there was just one ladle. So you maybe just even, not that you scrum with the guy. You're both in the penalty box together, and you were handing each other this ladle with leaves and bugs and spittle. You're right. And then we used to play with mud. Remember, did you ever make a mud castle?
Yes.
Yeah. It was, and then you drop your candy in it and go, well, if I kiss it up to God, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Especially when you got a Twinkie at the deli and you drop that.
And how many cuts and bruises, then you never put peroxide on it?
Peroxide? You kissed that too? You rub dirt on it? That's still the Republican form of health care, by the way. Rub dirt on it. We don't need Obamacare.
But I think it had a meaning.
No, it did, but that's what we thought. I mean, look, obviously we've come a long way. But I remember the other thing, walk it off. Your foot would be pointing behind you. Walk it off. It's going to be fine.
Right. Or stop crying. I'll give you something to cry about. That was another famous. That was my mother. My father, we lived in an apartment, and I always wanted a red wagon. And one day he said to me, "I'm going to fix your wagon." And I was like, "I'm getting the wagon. I'm getting the wagon." But, those are memories, which unfortunately my grandchildren don't have. Yeah. And
Anthony just texted, by the way, remember the 5-second rule when you dropped candy or food. Those were just, and we were okay,
Yes, yes. And how many people, I never did it. I mean, they used to stick their tongue to a frozen, what do you call it, bench or something,
I'm going to tell you a true story, which is a little bit salty, but it's true. So, and I put it in the news way back when. Some Russian guy, about when I first started doing news 15 or so years ago, I remember I did this story. It wasn't at night, but you'll have to deal with it in the morning now. And some drunken guy in a very western, now West Russia's colder than the East, obviously, towards Siberia. He was waiting for a bus, and he was drunk. So he decided to relieve his bladder, okay? But he inadvertently caught a certain part of himself on a frozen pole.
Oh, my God.
And couldn't get it off. Yeah. And that's what at least, Wet the pole first, you idiot. That's what I remember doing stories like that, hysterical stuff. I used to love doing stories like that when I was
Well,
at
I'm sure there are many kids that happened to. So,
I,
you know,
yeah. I remember taking. In fact, we went on the classic bus ride up here to Rye Beach, and when your mother always tells you go to the bathroom, it's going to be a
yes.
long ride. Well, I didn't, and I was too embarrassed. I was about 7 or 8, and too embarrassed to tell the teacher that I got to go to the bathroom. And finally, it was so bad they had to carry me out in the fetal position,
Oh God.
lay me on the grass. I opened up my equipment door,
Yes.
and I actually relieved myself laying on my side. But this was just a different time.
Well, I don't know. Did you have dog tags when you were in school?
What?
I never.
No.
Well, when I went to kindergarten, the
Okay.
one public school that I went to, we had dog tags, and we had
Wow.
nap time in kindergarten. And I asked the teacher if I could use the girls' room, and you had to carry one of those big blocks, but she wouldn't let me. So I just peed in my seat. So my mother comes to pick me up, and she tells my mother I had an accident.
Oh
Well,
my goodness.
being an only child, I think my mother probably thought I was dead on the floor. But and it was just that I peed in my seat and everything was wet. So I never went back. She never sent me back to school.
That's funny. This is terrible, but you just reminded me of something. Now, if you ever watch sports, one of the things that your body does, you never have to relieve your bladder during a game because when you're sweating, your body closes down that function so you retain water.
I didn't know that.
But if you have, let's say you drank too much the night before, some occasion you may have to relieve it. The bigger problem is if for some inadvertent reason you have a problem in the other department, maybe you're about to get a real bad case of, let's call it a blowout.
Yes.
Well, I remember in the middle of a hockey, and it never happened. It's 20 years ago in a rink in New Jersey. And the doorway out towards the men's room was all the way down at the other end of the rink. And I'm in front of the net down on this side. So imagine I'm at the wrong end of the rink. And I realized that if I don't get off the rink, I'm going to go in my pants. So the ref didn't blow a whistle. So I know I've got to. So I pull my helmet off, throw it to the side, throw my gloves off, throw the stick, and I go, open the door. Everybody's looking, open the door. And I'm scared. What's the matter? I'm going to bleep my pants. Open the door. And men are not kind.
No.
Do you think they opened the door quickly? Of course
No.
not. No, they wanted me to just curl up like a dead dog. And I flew. And then you ain't lived. In hockey, we were all that stuff. First you got the outer layer, then you have the pads, then you have the knee, and the shin guards would allow you to pull your pants down. So you're ripping off clothes as you're going in the bathroom, then you pull down your pants finally, but then you lock your knees together. So now you're walking around like a penguin, and you're hoping not to soil the whole place, and it was awful and embarrassing.
Well, did you learn your lesson?
Yeah, well, no, that is totally unpredictable. There was no lesson to learn. What was I going to do? I was in the middle of the game, and all of a sudden...
No, but afterwards, I mean,
Well, I don't know what it was I ate. No, and then it happened one other time. You have to see, if you ever played any kind of sport, athletes are weird. The locker rooms are fun, but they're nasty. We went out to dinner one night after a game, and that happened. Not that this happens a lot, but these are the two stories that come to mind. And we were in one of those horseshoes. And I was in the deepest part of the horseshoe. And one of our players was the chief of police. I was the player coach of a police hockey team. And I'm in the corner, deep in the recess of the booth. And the same thing happens.
Oh, my gosh.
And guess what the 4 gentlemen that I was with said when I said I have to go?
I don't know. The chief of police is one,
because
right?
yeah, all of them. Tough. I said, I'm going to crawl over the table. Tough. No, I'm not kidding. Tough.
Wow.
Some of them had a few drinks. They're eating their early breakfast. It was a late night game. Guys, I got it. I don't care. You're tough. They all said, a lot of expletives joined it. Tough in men speak is usually F you,
Yes.
So finally I crawl over the top of the table. Now the whole diner is looking, but they see this police chief and he's in uniform. So and they realize that something's up. Now they're laughing. One guy never stopped eating. I fall off of the table onto the floor, I run down in the middle of the diner, and the whole place is laughing. But you know when you get to that point where if you don't drop to your knees, you're going to go in your pants?
Yes.
So there I am in a fetal position in the diner, halfway down.
Oh, my God.
Until it passes, and then I get up and go. They never got up.
Well, that's what happened when I was working on 20th Street. There used to be a place to eat that made the best tuna and meatloaf. So we would tell the doorman that we were going to lunch there because there was a man that worked behind the counter. We used to call him Krusty.
Yeah, Krusty, I bet.
We used to have the tuna melt and vanilla egg cream. And the vanilla egg cream was bottomless.
Oh, my.
Right?
Oh, my.
So we'd get to 20th Street and 5th Avenue, and the doorman would see us coming. He'd open the door, press the elevator to our floor, because that was another thing. I mean, we used to always laugh, but it was so delicious. And I have to go back there and see. I don't think Krusty is working there anymore.
No, probably. Well, that's like this guy who's going to be on next. We had this Polish candy store.
Uh-huh.
Where you could remember the penny candies, Baby
Yes.
Janes and stuff. He used to go in there and say, "Hey, do you have Prince Albert in the can?" "Yeah." "Well, let him out." Lorraine, thank you, and I'll
Thank
find
you.
out. Take care.
Thank
I love
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. All right, what an impatient. Beep, 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 beep. Let him keep calling. He's got to call again. Let me turn this off. Vince is coming up next. You'd think he'd listen. They hear me talking. They keep calling. Good morning. I just outed you.
Yeah.
Vince Russo, everybody. Did you hear what I said about you?
Prince Albert, let him out.
Remember Pontius across the street, the penny candy?
I did. Gee, I don't know if I want to follow up on your.
Well, you knew the story about the. I don't know if I ever told you the story about at the rink when I was at the other end playing defense. I go, please open the door. I thought equipment strewn all over the ice. Well, everybody all over the rink. Everybody's looking like, what's wrong with him? Go open it up. I didn't even want to have to open the door. It's horrible. It's horrible. So now, you remember kissing candy up to God?
Yeah, of course. I remember all of that stuff. The fortunate thing when we were kids is in the post-war era, they developed all of the vaccines that prevented us from dying young the way our parents and grandparents did. Penicillin. I had pneumonia when I was an infant, and the doctor came to the house.
Yeah, remember that?
At those times, and he told my grandmother, he said, "I think this kid's going to die." He said, "We got this new drug we're going to try, and, if it doesn't work, well, he's toast." And it was penicillin.
Oh, it was new for you. Is that where it is?
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, it was just after, World War II had just ended a few years before. And
I forgot you're significantly older than I am.
I am, but 6 months, yeah.
You didn't have to tell people, but go ahead.
And
Anthony reminds me every day, how I'm significantly older than him. Anyway.
And then, then they developed the polio vaccine. Remember, don't step in that. It's polio water.
Oh, yeah. Remember when you were told don't step in cracks? You would break the devil's dishes?
Yeah, right. Well, then, of course, there's all the superstitions, black cats and walking under ladders and mirrors.
And this is, God forbid, when we were kids, and you know what I'm talking about, and this is with all due respect, ethnically, we thought a certain type of firecracker would chase you if you were black. It was just horrible, the things that we believed, and it just, we were kids. What did we know? But the one I hated the most, and the one I find very similar to religion, it's going to upset you. And a lot of mothers used to do this when they found their kids uncontrollable. They'd say, "A man is going to get you." What? Well, what man? Some big thuggy man like this. Mom, do you remember that? A man is going to get you.
Well,
that's exactly what religion does. It's exactly the same thing. But anyway,
when I was a kid,
the big guy's going to get you if you fornicate. Go ahead.
My mother never said that to me because my mother was the one that was going to get me.
I was just going to say something. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your mother, she didn't need to say the man is going to get you.
Oh no,
no,
not Angie. My dad was the pushover. My mother, oh my God.
Oh, Angie, no.
Yeah, but I don't know. But look at it. Look, it ran in that culture. I mean, look at your ma. Look at Grandma Lucy. I mean, these were formidable people.
No kidding.
You know.
Remember the time I didn't make it out of the house because she got me with the wooden spoon? I used to go to Mike's Bakery and get the hot bread, and then I'd pull it. I was steaming, and I'd pull off the top and turn it over, and I'd put it on the table, and I'd start going back out the door. Robert! And I'd head for the door. But I remember the time she got me the most with the wooden spoons because I panicked. I couldn't get the lock open.
But we all did that. Whenever you had to go to the bread store to get bread, you always ate half the darn loaf, and come back and it looked like a rat had gotten at the bread.
Did your mom? Did she check every penny of change? Because remember, I used to try and hold back on the pennies because then I go to Ponyi's and get my baby, Mary Janes and stuff. But
she got the change back, but I don't know if she scrutinized it all that closely.
My grandmother.
I don't recall.
My grandmother.
I guess I was a trusting little fella,
No, you were a terrified little fella.
Yeah, well, it's true. I remember one time I was getting dressed, and remember when we went to Catholic school, you had to wear a white shirt and a tie to school.
Don't remind me.
And I was getting dressed, and I was having my breakfast, and this is how paranoid I was. I don't know. I said something, and I thought my mother was going to slap me, but she wasn't. But I flinched, and I spilled the orange juice all over my white shirt.
Oh, no, you did not.
That elicited an immediate response. I got one across the chops like you wouldn't believe.
Do you know what my problem was? Remember I had, my mother adopted all my cousins. And so there was Mary, and I hope they're listening, God, I don't know. There was Mary, and there was Carol, God rest her soul, and Ronnie, God rest her soul as well. And they all had different things. Mary was the oldest, so this would be the morning like. I get up, and Herb Oscarand, hello again. My mom would put the radio on. My brother was the oldest. He would just be already out the door and say, I hope you all die, to get things started, And it'd start with Mary be playing her music on the third floor. Young girl. She was always pining over some guy that broke up with her. I had to listen to that. Then Ronnie's over there. I want braids. Give me braids. You got to braid me, Mom. You got to braid my hair. Please shut up, Ronnie. But braid my hair. I'm not going to school. Then Carol started, oh, sure, she gets braids. What about me? I'm not wearing that dress. I am not wearing that dress. And the house was like a cacophony of sounds. It was like a carnival. Young girl, the three girls all yelling and screaming. And little Bobby, Robert in the house, would say, Mom, what? By the time she got to me, and I remember I made the mistake one day of saying I didn't like the way this particular white shirt fit. She tore it off me, buttons and all. No, so but by the time she got to me, I was doomed.
Well, I just like any other Italian family, we centered around food, and I, of course, always remember, thinking, oh, I'd like such and such. And my mother would, put liver or something in front of us. And she'd say, this is not a restaurant. You don't get to order.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did. Just remind me of that.
But, with this situation that we have now, I was thinking the other day how these modern generation is going to cope with this stuff. I go to my niece and nephew, and we have dinner. I'm not going now. When normal times.
Sure.
And so we'll finish dinner, and my niece will say to me, Uncle Vinny, do you want the leftovers? I said, well, aren't you guys going to have? She says, oh no, we don't eat leftovers.
Why not?
Going, you don't eat
leftovers.
Like, what are you talking about? And in times of privation, how are these kids going to cope? How are they going to?
Or without fast food. Now, what only people of a certain Anthony would relate to this. In fact, Anthony calls a lot, but I got to give him a regular spot and make as you have at some point in time and work that out because he has these stories that are great as well, like we did. But I remember that your I lost my train of thought, but it had to do with the stuff that we ate when we were kids. Oh, yes. When you told your parents you didn't want to eat something, you weren't going to eat.
Oh, you didn't? No. It was like, are you kidding me? Like my niece was telling me the other day, oh, we made such and such, blah, blah, blah. And her little boy, Michael, she says, oh, and Michael didn't like that, so Matt put some chicken on the grill for him. Like, I am imagining my mother
Yeah.
Saying what?
I know.
No,
I
no,
know.
no, no,
No,
no,
no.
no.
No, 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 no.
You're going to eat. And actually, you know what the good part about that was is now I can eat just about any. I mean, there's a few things that I don't like.
Well, that I can't do because of
and I won't eat.
my butter problem, which people like you always like to remind me of.
Oh. Yeah, well, that was a deal with you because, especially back then, a lot of stuff was made with butter, and people put it on routinely on stuff.
It turned my liver into a mess. What was it? Oh, yes. I don't think I ever went to your house. It could have been 2 a.m. Your mother didn't offer me food.
Well, that was always, again, that culture. I remember a very dear friend of mine, the guy who got the coronavirus and fortunately survived. You know him. I shouldn't, let me rephrase. His dad was feuding with him, and it was over silly stuff, long hair and the beard and all of that kind of stuff.
Let's not mention the beard.
And his, but my friend would, still go see his parents, and his dad would give him a hard time, and he didn't care. He went anyway, and as well he should. And but I would go with him, and his father was this old, and I say this in very endearing terms, this old greaser from the other side, who I'd go in there, he'd go, Vince, how are you? And I'd say, Nino, good, I'm good, man, And he'd say, great. I'd say, come on, get some food out of here. You're hungry, right? And me, I never refuse food. I go, yeah, sure.
But to remember my Mrs. Ponzo who was my grandmother's best friend, who was very Italian. My grandmother was actually born here, but her mother was not. But she spoke fluent Italian. And Mrs. Ponzo used to bribe me with cookies and soda and milk. Robert, they're telling me when your grandmother, she's angry at you. What does she say? And so I don't understand the words, Mrs. Ponzo. Have a cookie, so have some. I do it, and then I didn't know that a lot of the things my grandmother was saying were curse words. So
oh yeah.
I'd say, well, she'd say, "I'm whatever." I can't say it on the air, and the woman would start laughing, tears coming down her face, cramps in her belly. I'll have more cookies. And then one day, my grandmother got the wooden spoon. Hi, Grandma, sit down. You can't tell Mrs. Ponzo what I say when I'm angry. I remember the first time. We grew up without fast food. And I was with someone with Merrill at work, and we were out in business, and they were much younger, so not that younger, 17 years old. Come on, we'll go to the drive-thru. I know we were in Boston or somewhere. And I said, what? To the drive-thru. So I said, what's that? And it was so embarrassing. It was at a Burger King or something like that. And I didn't know where you gave the order, and I started talking to a phone booth. Just totally mortifying.
One of the things that was a shame when we grew up is, both my parents were born here, but, both of their parents, of course, my grandparents were immigrant from Italy. Mm-hmm. And so my parents both spoke Italian as well as spoke English, obviously. And the shame was they never taught us Italian. They used Italian so that they could speak between them, and so that we wouldn't understand what they were saying. And it was so sad in retrospect how we didn't get the benefit of that part of the culture, where we could have learned
I didn't
little
learn
bit
a
of the
word.
language and stuff like that.
I didn't learn a word. Well, we're going to be doing something here, a segment you're going to want to listen to. I mentioned Anthony earlier. Here in New Rochelle and in Mount Vernon and other parts of this area, Eastchester, there are huge neighborhoods just like ours. Believe me, these neighborhoods were not suburbs. And they have the same kinds of stories, and we're going to be doing a show about that coming up. And you're going to just love it because they did, the same stuff, flipping cards. Did you hear the conversation the other day about flipping cards with Bob Cox? Do you remember Fat Mo? Fat Mo used to have when he was one of those gunslingers, had the shopping bag with 1,000 cards in them. I'm not going to shoot him,
Yeah, that's right. And remember, there was always a guy who would pick up for get a cut of the winnings if he picked up the cards.
You know, this is why. I was the other line was working. Galetta Anthony says we did have fast food pizza, and he says I forgot.
Yeah, that's true.
You're so old. And pitching pennies. I didn't ever pitch pennies, but yeah, we used to pitch pennies. Send more. Anthony says pitching pennies. But pizza was. Do you remember the pizza wars on Prospect Avenue when it got down to 15 cents a slice?
Yeah, no, actually, it was 10 cents a
What
slice.
was 10 during the pizza war between those two places on Prospect Avenue?
And then one guy offered 10 cents a slice and a small free drink.
Yeah, the small. I used to, and we walked everywhere then. Remember, we walked at Germain's. I remember I got sick in Germain's as a kid. I didn't eat red dots for what are those dots? You know the candy dots.
Yeah, sure.
In Germain's, I got a hot dog, which I didn't eat again for 10 years, and an orange drink.
You know, it's funny how you look at the scale of things back then. Of course, wages were much lower and rents were lower and all of that. And you look at, forget during normal times of pizza, not during the pizza wars, but, a slice was 15 cents or 20 cents a slice. A whole pie was $1 or $1 and a quarter. And, you look at it now and you go and buy a pie, it's, $13, $14, whatever it may be. It's so weird how things have changed so much.
And remember, Anthony says, you used to get a quarter of Coke? And let me remind him. John Bailey. Yes, call on 999-4006 in 60 seconds. Okay? Thanks. I'm just coordinating. As you know, Vin, I'm also the producer and engineer here today, so bear with me. Yeah, Anthony says a quarter Coke. I forgot we used to call it a quarter Coke. Did you ever get milk delivered, Vin?
Yes, we got milk delivered because my dad didn't have the heart to tell the guy no when the guy came to the door to solicit, So.
Well, I remember one time. Yeah, deliveries though was even the newspaper deliveries. I remember I thought my house was. You know the story of me thinking my house was getting broken into.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel bad to this day because it was before we had DVDs and VCRs, and right after I was first married, and some guy. That's it. There was that movie, The Incredible Shrinking Man, and I waited 30 years to see it again. It was on, but it was on 4 a.m. So I'm watching it, and I'm down in the living room, and I hear somebody trying to break into the front door. Because if you saw your doorknob turning and pounding and stuff, what would you think? So I go to the kitchen, I get a knife, and I'll kill you, I'll stab you, I'll cut your heart out if you can't come in here 1 minute, blah, blah. And I hear the door slam and I hear footsteps running. My wife goes to the window, looks out, then she calls downstairs. What did you do to the newspaper boy? He never came back. Listen, I gotta go, but those were the times. So.
See you tomorrow.
All right, take care. It's everybody. We gotta get Anthony on later or tomorrow. Here he is. Oh my goodness, I love it. I'm enjoying this more and more. We promised people come up to me after the show. We're going to give you all the hard news on the virus. Don't worry, and keep you up to date. But we're going to try and have a little fun. You're all stuck in the house. I'm stuck in the brain. It is 7:39. John Bailey's next, our man in White Plains. Another guy with a sense of humor. Anthony, thank you for those texts. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew News. Shell voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and they're right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. 44 already, getting to 54. The sun is shining, but it's not going to stay that way. We'll have clouds, but no rain as we get through the rest of the day. Getting into tonight, though, mostly cloudy. Then you'll have scattered showers. I should do it like a poem. The temperature will be 42. Friday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. Scattered showers, bring me flowers. The high will be 55. And on it to Saturday, partly sunny. A high of 56 degrees. And we go to our man in White Plains. And we're sort of glad he's calling in because he dresses like he lost his job 10 years ago. No, please welcome, he's also a friend now, John Bailey. Good morning, sir.
Good morning from White Plains, USA. It's 39 and sunny.
39 and sunny in the great city of White Plains. Hey, your take. Did you see this thing today? And I understand where the numbers come in late, but I suspect that the county executive is getting phone calls because today he said that he doesn't want to give the numbers out by city anymore. That got my news nose twitching. I wonder who complained. I say it was either your mayor, Roach or Spano, the guys that like to live under a rock and only come out when it looks good?
Well, Mayor Roach, in his message to the people by phone last night, pointed out that there is a lag between the numbers that the state puts out and when they give it to the county on an individual basis, and they're working to fix that.
Well, okay, but that makes sense. Then.
So that's very typical. They blame the state.
Yeah. Well, they
Everybody
blame
blames
George, yeah,
the state.
or the county.
The
in
New
that
York
case.
Times blames the state. I mean, the state is the whipping boy.
Now, when you say the state, do you mean the state in caps, meaning whomever the government is, or do you mean New York State?
New York State.
Okay. Well, the governor's doing a pretty decent job by all accounts. Even people who don't
well,
never really like him.
thank God he is.
Well, you don't have to
But
thank
I
me.
mean, he's just he's indefatigable.
Oh yes, I like that. See, I actually that's you pronounce. I always say indefatigable because it says what I want to say more. But you actually pronounced it the way it was intended.
Well, thank you. I don't always pronounce words right.
Well, this we know. So what's going on in White Plains? Now, let me remind people, he is the managing editor, the publisher of WhitePlainsCitizen.net. He's the TV host of White Plains Week. And I always forget the other show because I'm an idiot.
People to be heard.
People to be heard or not listened to. And now, are you going into the studio to do that, or are you doing it from home? How's that going?
No.
Okay.
I can't put the studio staff at risk. In fact, they're closed to the public, and they're not doing any production.
But see, I'm close to the public as well, but I'm in here alone by myself. I'm a hermit now.
Yes, a recluse on the mic.
A radio recluse. I like that. Maybe I'll open up tomorrow. Welcome to Radio Recluse. All right, what's going on in the great city of White Plains? Has the mayor made an appearance? Elvis shows up more than he does. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, his fact that he's getting these telephone messages every night really is a very good thing, and he remarks on things that
does it go something?
He observes around town. In fact, his latest remark is that is the amount of litter of discarded masks and various things in the streets.
Why is that?
He's called out the people to stop it, quote unquote.
Well, that's good. That's good.
But, I mean, it's just little observations like that. And he also really does not, he really points out that you have to keep your distance. And this is the big theme these days. Keep your distance, people, when you're outside. And also stay at home. And one thing I've observed in White Plains is that you just have to, when you go to the supermarket to pick up food, you really have to put masks on, folks. You have to wear gloves. I think many of the clerks who are in the grocery stores should be equipped with masks too, and gloves. Many are in the store I go to, but a lot are not. And this is you're meeting a lot of people, and you should also wash your hands every time you touch something that is foreign to your domicile.
I just broke one of my masks. Broke it. See? All right, where was? Oh no, don't we need you?
Okay.
Okay. What else is he saying? You know what he should do? He should have some fun with people. See, I have this evil streak. He should say, "Hi, I'm Tom Roach, mayor of White Plains. I have a job for life. I am bulletproof. I will be here until your grandchildren die with a paycheck, and you're all going to go broke."
Well, there's a lot of truth in that.
No
because
kidding.
One of the things the president has going for him is he's making more appearances, and his what do they call it, his supporters across the nation really like the fact that he is just stepping up or rather tiptoeing up. as
Well,
they
yeah, well,
say.
that's actually good. You know, I'm having fun. As people who know Mayor Roach, he's really a nice guy, but I love to have fun about these things because it's true. Do you know what I've concluded? This is official now, coming from Bob Marrone. Da-da-da. The mother of all boondoggles is I want to be a county legislator, neving to have to work. I
Yes.
can get 75 grand to dance around and twerk. Bum, bum, bum.
Well,
how do
the
I,
issue.
I'm
that,
still not. I'm
that-
still not. I still haven't decided not to run for that one. It's open here. I'm beginning to have contempt for that job. But anyway, continue, please.
Well, it depends on what you want to bring to the job. If you want to just do as the county executive says he wants you to do, then and not really do too much and sort of sleep in committee meetings, which some of them do, then it's your job.
Well,
But
actually,
if you want to make a difference, it's not the job.
I'm
to take.
being unfair, but what I'm doing is that's a broad net. Those that they do their 5-day-a-week job, they show up for an hour once a week, and they pick up messages and attend a committee meeting. Man, for 75 grand, how do I get that work? Jeez. Anyway, continue, please.
Be that as it may, the county has to decide whether or not they're going to extend the deadline on the county tax. And we don't know exactly what they're doing with that. I haven't seen any press releases, but the press releases are a few and far in between.
From whom?
The last 3 weeks. From the county.
Well, George is out there every day, on TV and everything. And,
Yes, but you have to see it.
Oh,
and
good.
not everybody does.
In fact, the county executive just answered, are parks closed? No. By the way, Lorraine Carl, thank you very much. The county executive Latimer, he even answers texts. No, the parks are our parks closed? No, they are not. So that's a good thing. So playgrounds and parks.
He has closed them?
No, he has not closed them.
He has not closed them.
No.
Right. Okay. That's that was my understanding too. However, the governor is closing the playgrounds in New York City because there are too many games still being played.
We have a very
close proximity. He's closing the playgrounds.
We have a very interesting dynamic going on. The society has evolved to the point where no one can control their teenagers, okay, and their young people. Mm-hmm. And if the parents aren't good parents or strong parents, the kids are going out and going to do stuff anyway. And to that end, the mayor of Mount Vernon actually wanted a tighter curfew than the governor. Sean Patterson Howard wanted to close shop at 8 o'clock. Just nobody go out, or even 6 o'clock.
Well, that's a good job by the mayor of Mount Vernon.
Yeah, she's been she's in the midst of it. Hey, what do you think of that, by the way? I can't wait to get Richard Thomas back on and let him gloat a bit. Everything that he went through, she's going through.
Yes. I don't know.
And day by
where
day,
Richard Thomas is.
Oh no, I get him on occasionally, but I can't keep beating that horse until it goes. I'm waiting for more of the evidence to evolve. But day by
the
day,
county tax. The
gets
county
into-
tax is the big issue. The county has to decide whether you have to pay like right now, or whether they'll extend it to the federal deadline.
I think he's going to have to.
Another issue that has to be considered is whether the state education department is going to postpone the budget elections across the state, which is supposed to be May the 20th, which will be shortly after the expected apex, very shortly after, 3 weeks, and also whether or not they will put them out to June the 23rd, which is the regular primary date. The reason being, of course, that if you want, you're going to have people at the polls, and right after the break. So that is a big issue, and that has not been decided, according to our school superintendent. So that is an issue. I think if they hold those on the May 20th, they're not going to hardly get any turnout, and the budgets will pass with ease, or, i.e., could be defeated, which would be a disaster. And no school district wants their budget defeated this year because they're out of money anyway.
Well, this is very true. On the
Yeah.
schools, well, we have this emerging problem that's been uncovered. The scab is off. The issue of why so many kids don't get to eat in Westchester County and well, in New York City as well. And the schools are petrified of us looking at this issue because they might actually have to deal with parents. They don't want to do that.
Well, there is the school,
What's that?
lunch program.
Oh, thank
and
God
the
we
school
have it.
breakfast.
Thank God we have it, but the very fact that we have it tells us that we have an economic, a social, and cultural tear in our society that is a disgrace. And it's just so. Whether it's the income inequality, whether it's poor parenting, or whether it's again going up the income issue, where middle class folks, both parents have to work, so they can't even make lunch. But whatever it is, I'm glad we're solving the problem, but it makes the tail drag the dog. It is I say arguable because I'll never know definitively, but schools wanted to stay open so kids could eat, even if they killed others, and that's the
Well,
frank
the governor solved that by closing the schools,
Yes, he
and
did.
I think it's a darn good thing he did.
Yes, it
in
is.
retrospect.
Yes, it is.
I mean, otherwise we'd be through the roof. But the good news is that the state continues to lower the rate of its increase in overall coronavirus cases. They were down to 9.5% increase yesterday, and remember they started out in the 17, 18, 19s.
Yes, they did.
And so that is excellent. So, but the governor pointed out that, hey, you've got to sequester more. Everybody has to stay in and not distance one another, because McKinsey put out that very interesting study, that showed that if we do absolutely maximum shuttering and that you will lower the need for the ventilators by about from 47,000 down to about 30,000.
Did you see? Now, who is calling me 7 minutes early? Anyway,
but that's very important. So people just don't do any unnecessary. Like, for example, when the governor talked about his brother's coronavirus infection, the brother had wanted to take their mother over to his house, and the governor talked him out of it because he said if you do that, you could be exposing them to whatever you have, and perhaps the coronavirus. And in fact, I saw that the other day, just yesterday, when I was walking around the neighborhood to get exercise. People visiting, and visiting is not good.
No, it's not, and it's a real
no matter
problem.
how much we want it.
That's very, very true. John Bailey is our guest, WhitePlainsCitizen.net, our man in White Plains. You mentioned those machines. Early this morning, I was listening to a program about how many parts. Do you know those machines have 700 parts in them to build? And a lot of them have to be forged. They're poured aluminum. And it takes a lot. Oh, hold on, John. I'm also my producer here. This is probably my guest. Good morning. This is Radio Westchester. Hi, Allison. How are you? We're going to ask you to call that line in about 6 minutes. Okay? Yes, you did. Yeah, we got a notice that you called. We're with another guest right now. Okay? So we'll be with you then. Thank you so much. My next guest, by the way, John Bailey, you may know. Do you know that? She's Allison Lake, and she was with an organization called the Westchester Children's Association.
Well, I mean, let's give the children's care agencies around the county a terrific hand for setting up all the daycare around the county, and that was one thing I have to commend the county executive for, is getting that done in 2 days, as I recommend. I'm grateful to the school districts all putting together the online teaching within 2 days. That's a tremendous achievement. I mean, and it appears to be working.
That does.
with not major glitches in the computers. Now, if everybody in New York City had laptops, that would be good.
Oh, it would be good, but
Yes.
well, I guess a lot of people do. What else is
Yeah.
going on in White Plains? Then I want to ask you. Got a couple of questions for you.
Well, the major problem around is the White Plains totals are staying pretty steady. They're raising maybe about 10% in line with the state each day, but that means people are not distancing as they should, because look at what's happening in Nassau and Suffolk. Nassau and Suffolk are rising faster than New York City totals, 13% and 10%, and that's horrible. Why is it? Because it's driving out there. You don't have any mass transit to speak of, and people have to stop doing that. They've got to sequester more. And, of course, we're all worried about when Congress go back to work and get some more income stimulus out there, because everybody needs it.
When are we
going to
start?
Money.
When are we going to start seeing some money?
Well, 3 weeks, supposedly.
Well, guys like you and I and others who are self-employed, it's going to hit us right between the eyes. You know that, because advertising revenues are just going to dry up.
Well, that's really true. And if you read the newspaper of gloom and doom, the New York Times, on the front page today, there's nothing to be happy about. Like, the economy isn't going to rebound and all that. Well, one might have thought that might happen.
Well, you know what? The economy will rebound. I do believe that. Again, being an old Wall Street guy, there's no doubt on my mind.
But the jobs have to return before that happens.
Well, yes, but they always do, because they have to. This is the classic case of, if you remember the movie, and this is not related to the theme of the movie, but in The Wolf of Wall Street, when there is that little play act there where the guy says, you need to sign that, but he doesn't have a pen. And the other guy holds up a pen. He says, I have the pen. You want to buy it? People need jobs. There are ways to make money. The economy will come roaring back. I have no doubt.
Before we go, I would just want to point out that what we are seeing is death for dollars. And
yes.
Death for dollars is the game that's being played by very horrible people around the globe.
Yes,
middlemen are, and that is why they have to really consolidate this whole purchasing situation.
Well, one can
Governor
hope.
Cuomo is right.
Yes, he is, and America's always had that problem. John Bailey, thank you so very much. John Bailey, our man in White Plains. Don't forget to watch his show, read his website, whiteplainscitizen.net. And I just have this mental block for his third outlet, but White Plains Week on his outlet. All righty, on local cable television. United Hebrew of New Rochelle, top-rated campus of senior care, sponsors the weather. And the weather it's 44 already, getting up to 54. It's sunny right now. Clouds will build, but it'll be nice the rest of the day until this evening. We will have some showers and into the morning. That's late Thursday night. It'll drop to 42. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, scattered showers, high of 55. The overnight low, 41. Saturday, partly sunny. The high will be 56 degrees. And we're back. I didn't get a chance to ask him about his childhood and the kinds of things that he did. But next week, because one of the things that we're trying to do, folks, is not just talk about the doom and gloom that's going on, as he said, but apropos of that, there are people, there are organizations that are doing, for lack of a better word, God's work. Always have, always will. And I mentioned earlier today during my monologue that being someone who didn't come from Westchester, initially came up here some 20 years ago on business and then radio, and then this is the market where I made my living. But I have always been impressed with the volunteerism here, and incredibly so, and the nonprofits. And my next guest is just such one of them. Her name is Allison Lake, and she is the executive director of the Westchester Children's Association. And as she said in a note that she'd put out, her attention is split between the financial health of that organization and worrying about the children themselves, and after the postponement, by the way, of her annual benefit to raise money. So what we want you to do is really lean in and listen to this and the work that she's doing with children, has done with children, what she's going to do about her benefit. But please, without further delay, please welcome Allison Lake. Good morning. How are you? Are you there? Did I hear
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. How are you? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you right away. Welcome to the program, and I'm going to come straight out. Thanks for what you do. First, tell us about the organization.
Well, thanks for having me this morning. Westchester Children's Association is a multi-issue children's advocacy organization. We work on issues around children from 0 to 25 years of age. We advocate at the county, state, and sometimes even the federal level to make sure all kids have what they need to be safe, healthy, and prepared for life's challenges.
I think that does say it all, but there are so many individual issues. Now, first, I want to cover the business end of this. Your gala is postponed, okay?
That's correct.
Now, do you know when you're going to reschedule it? And that's very important for you for money. Talk to us about it.
Yes, it is. As for all nonprofits, spring is certainly gala benefit season, so ours was scheduled for May 19th. We have postponed it to October 28th.
Okay. People, write that down, folks.
Write that down. We're happy that our honorees are available and our venue is available, and certainly would encourage as many people as possible to attend. And they can find information.
Where's it going to be?
It's going to be at the Surf Club in New Rochelle, and they can find information and stay up to date in case there are any changes on our website, WCA, the number 4, kids, KIDS.org.
And because we will do all we can. You know, it's April now, but don't be a stranger. As we go forward, we'll help you promote this. We know how important your organization is.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And I'll even go. I mean, not that you would want it, but if for any reason during this change you lost an MC and you need a pro bono MC, I'd help you there too. What you do is important. So.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
If you need to call somebody out of the bullpen, I'll warm up my right arm. Now, what are the issues that are you most concerned with now, given COVID-19? Because you were making rounds. Go ahead.
Right. You know, at any given time, we work on 3 to 4 issues, but with the pandemic that is facing all of us, we're really seeing some of the issues that we have been involved in taking on a whole new sort of level. We have been looking at child and youth homelessness here in Westchester County, and now with the crisis and everyone needing to stay in place and social distances, you think of families that are in doubled up or tripled up units that were really made or housing for one family. So we have tremendous concern for our families that find themselves in that situation, as well as families that are in shelters when there are people that find themselves with the virus. You know, how can they isolate and get the service they need and continue to support? This is a scary time for all of us, but particularly for children and young people, the uncertainty of it all, the disruption of their routines. So we are very much concerned about the emotional health and well-being of children.
Let me ask you this, Allison. You know, we're all, and this includes me too, we're all so worried about our livelihoods and the organizations we run. I'm talking about adults now and keeping our things in place. It's easy to forget the emotional fragility. I mean, I go back I'm old, but during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I was petrified.
Right.
As we led up to the Vietnam War, I was frightened. Even, I remember all these things, and you would obsess and you were worried, and a lot of our kids are going through that. And you obviously are in touch with that dynamic. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, and so, you know, as I mentioned, it really comes from the disruption of their routines and having families have to shelter in place, adults around them that may be losing their employment, and the anxiety and stress that can place on families, children of all ages. You know, even if they don't verbally express it, certainly understand that there is a crisis and there is trauma that can be involved in that. We work very closely with direct service partners. We are advocates, our direct service partners that are on the front line working with families, working with children. Our goal is to really set up the policies and systems and the budgets and the funding to allow them to meet families where they are.
Well, I'm talking with Allison Lake. She is the executive director of the Westchester Children's Association. And again, their gala has been delayed. They get a lot of funding through that, and they work very closely on behalf of the children in Westchester County. Now, I was looking at the piece you wrote, some comments you wrote about your organization, and two things, and I'm going to add a third, jumped off the page at me. Because we tend to think of Westchester, we're moneyed here, we're diverse and wonderful. Homelessness and hunger. And the third thing that I want to add that this crisis has really uncovered, even to the detriment in some cases of our school systems, because they weren't very honest about some stuff. So many children have to get breakfast and lunch at school that closing schools became problematic, because how are we going to get food to these kids? In this day and age, for kids to go hungry like this or to be homeless, how great are those problems, and how do you help?
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Westchester is a very diverse county. So we base our advocacy on data as much as possible. I do want to give a shout out and remind everyone to complete their census, because that is so helpful for all of us in the work that we do, but also in bringing resources to the Westchester area and community. But we've been looking, as I mentioned, at child and youth homelessness. And without getting too in the weeds or too complicated, there are different definitions of how you define a child or a family as homeless. And the Department of Education considers those families that are in the doubled up or tripled up situation that I mentioned as homeless. And so in Westchester County, the latest data that we have available, that's about 2,800 children that are homeless under that definition. And as I said, so when you're in a crisis, all of a sudden the light is shown, the things that have always happened. I really think this is an opportunity for us, now that we have seen the light, of how many kids, as you said, depend on free lunch, to do better as we move forward. WCA, as I mentioned, we publish data publications. Every other year we do a data bulletin. On the off years, we do community snapshots, and anyone can go to our website, look up their school district, municipality, and get a handle of things like how many in their district are on, say, free or reduced lunch. And I think that people will be surprised, really, when they think about it. We know that, there are, I would say, about 25% of our children and young adults live in low-income households that are making $50,000 a year trying to support a family of four. We know the cost of living in Westchester, as high as it is. And so when, tragedy strikes, like the coronavirus, then we really see, unearthed, what has always been right in front of us, but we didn't realize. And so I say kudos to school districts and community groups that are still providing lunch pickups and delivery, to children in communities. This doesn't just fall at the feet of school districts.
Which is my point. For
all of us.
It's for all of us. That's one of the reasons I'm bringing it up. Allison, I can't tell you, most people don't get to do what I do for a living, and although they have kids in school and they know. But I wasn't blind to it. I knew we had school lunch programs, but I didn't realize that the closing of schools would have a catastrophic effect on people eating.
Right.
And that not ought to be. Now, I'm not saying you certainly in your good offices don't have the ability to change government or society at large the way it works, but clearly we don't have to have children going hungry. So to that end, what are your main goals? What are the goals of your organization? And you deal with homelessness. You're concerned about education, and I think you speak very well in the article that you wrote about making sure kids have laptops, et cetera, et cetera. What are your main concerns right now, and then what are the goals of the organization? overall?
So, we are fortunate to be a small and nimble but mighty organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the ability to pivot when we need. I mentioned the child and youth homelessness we had been
Yes.
working on. The technology divide is something that we certainly have been aware of, but was not one of our front issues. And with the COVID-19, we immediately started to dig into the data, reaching out to those school districts that are around our table to try to get a better understanding of what that means for kids as they are trying to do online learning and continue, their academic endeavors. And so for us at this point, I think we will be digging deeply into that, looking at best practices that can be used, such as reaching out to the internet companies to really see about discounts for families, with certain income areas to do that. School districts perhaps bringing hotspots to kids, just like they're bringing them lunch, bringing hotspots so that they have
That's
that
nice.
online
Yeah.
connection. And so the role of WCA is really to advocate, whether it is at a municipality level or a county level, as I said, and even the state, to think about different policies that we now need to put in place as a result of this crisis. And not only do we advocate, but a large part of our work is also educating the public so that they can advocate on their own behalf for their families and for their communities for the needs that they know better than you or I.
Wow, Allison Lake, you have an interesting job and an important job. As do you think, because it's my gut, but you're more obviously savvy and educated in these issues, there's a silver lining in this COVID, at least when it comes to children, because it's uncovering these issues in a way that needed to happen. The fact that so many children are hungry, the fact that so many children are living the way they live, and the economic circumstances of their parents and so forth. Do you see that silver lining as I do?
I do. As I, said, that I think that now things are in brighter light, if you will, and we have the opportunity to move forward and put in place practices, budgets, supports that we know can help our children moving forward. One of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou that says, when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely.
So
That's a great quote, by the way. I've got to remember that. Hey, another question apropos of our discussion. Do you get to deal much with children? I mean, I assume you do, who are in foster homes, et cetera, because foster parenting, you got some people who really want to do it. Other people just do it for the money. How do we help? How does your organization help? How do we as a society help children that have to be fostered?
So WCA through the years has very much been a proponent of trying to give young people in the foster care system what they need to successfully grow up and transition out of foster care into adulthood. Several years ago, we advocated at the county for funding for young people, as I said, that were aging out of foster care, so they could be 18, 19, 20 years of age, and to give them access to a pot of money that would allow them, if they were going on to higher education, to be able to buy books, afford books, or if they were going into a certification program, that they would be able to buy the tools necessary for the trade that they were in. Because I think we take for granted what many of us are able to provide to our children. But children that have grown up in the foster care system do not often have that support, don't have that backup, when they make a mistake, and need somebody to sort of, lift them up, if you will, for a while. So we have always worked closely. There are a number of residential programs here in Westchester that we have worked with to better understand the needs of foster kids, and to understand how we as a county can support them, as I said, as they move on. I have...
Go ahead. No, continue.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a difficult. I mentioned it. This is a first-person issue for me because I had been a foster child, and one of the things that gets that people don't look at, and why I'm always hoping that the stays are longer, is every time a child leaves a foster parent for another one, or perhaps go back to their biological parent, as I did, or graduates out of the program completely, there's loss there. They lose a family, and sometimes they lose two or three. How do we deal with that?
right. And now again we know that that is really multiple traumas that young
Trust
people
me.
that
Yeah.
already were coming out of a difficult situation are facing. And so I would say that supporting the resources and the professionals around them to be able to do the job that they do. I know in this time, as I mentioned, of the virus, for
Mm-hmm.
those kids that are living in residential programs, again, when we're supposed to be, sort of social distancing, and you have staff that are doing their best and putting themselves at risk coming in to do that job to guide and support children. But the longer that this happens, you mentioned that there's always a need for more foster parents.
Yeah.
But the longer we're in this situation where people are, afraid of the risk of bringing people into their homes or even themselves perhaps transmitting, the virus to a child, that we're going to start to see that pipeline sort of dry up. And so there is always urgent need for families who are interested in foster care. One of our agenda items for the state budget is also better supporting family and extended family to do kinship care, which is, the best option, so that children don't have to be totally removed from their families, but then supporting those kinship families with the resources and supports they need to raise the child.
Because I tell you, one of the issues that comes out of foster care not done well is the kids feel they never have a home.
Yes.
They're forever never home, no matter where they are, no matter what they do. Even if they wind up ultimately with a wonderful family, they still have that feeling that they have the other family they're not with. And it's very complicated, but you guys do great work.
Very complicated, right? And then we add on top of it, during this time of the pandemic, just as I said, the fear that all of us have, and certainly children that are already, feeling that loss or disconnection, if you will, from family is intensified.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Allison Lake, she's the executive director of the WCA, Westchester Children's Association. This wonderful work. I got to ask you about this. How did you get into this line of work? And clearly it comes from your heart.
Yes, it is definitely a passion of mine. Children have always been. Previously to my work at WCA, I was more involved in direct service of youth development. And prior to that, also worked around fundraising for community engagement. I just feel it's so important for us to help that next generation to be better than we are, and to help them fulfill their potential. In the piece that you are referring to, I often use a Maasai reading.
I was going to ask you about
that.
that.
The children.
What is this language that you? It's called. Let me see if I can pronounce it right. And again, Allison Lake is going to laugh at me now. But Kasarian. Okay, no wait, I can do this. Kasarian Ingira.
Ingira, yes. Listen, I don't speak Maasai either, but
what is Maasai?
Early in my career, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa and did some travel, certainly into Kenya, and did visit with Maasai. But I thought that expression as a way to greet each other is a reminder that we always should keep children right at the forefront. At Westchester Children's Association, we keep children at the top of the public agenda. Again, they are our future. Children do not vote, and so it's for us to remember when we go to the polls, when we're thinking of our budget, that we're keeping them in mind and their needs forefront. And that's what WCA is in place to help everyone do.
Let me ask you this, and as you can see, I set aside a lot of time because it's very easy during this period to, again, be so concerned about our own money. And of course, this needs to happen, about money, about finances, about taking care of our family, that we forget that what children must be going through. So just a little more time, please. Let's get to the business end of this. Obviously, your gala is important, but how else do you get money? How else can people help you? How do you keep this enterprise running? Let me help you. Let us hear.
Sure, and I appreciate that, because Westchester Children's Association, we do not receive any government funding, so we depend on private donations and foundations to support our work. Fundraisers like our benefit that has been postponed to the fall. but we will be doing a spring campaign that I urge people to keep their eyes out. We are hoping to do sort of a virtual kickoff of that spring campaign to allow us, as you said, to continue the important work that we do. So we count on donors and contributions. And again, people can find more information at our website, WCA4kids.org.
Give it again. Give it again.
Okay. WCA, 4kids, KIDS.org. But we also, and with the contributions and donations, we want people to be active. We want them to be civically engaged. I mentioned that we have done trainings for young people, for communities on what is advocacy, how do I advocate, and there are many ways that you can do that. We try to make it as easy as possible. We have what we call one-click advocacy. Even today, as the state is still working on the state budget, if you go to our website and look for the one-click advocacy, you could send an email to Governor Cuomo and elected officials in the Senate and Assembly about the important agenda items for children in this state budget, but also locally. People need to be engaged with their school districts. We're not sure if school budgets will be delayed in any way. So I urge people to stay aware of what's happening in their school district around the budget, because we're seeing just how crucial schools are to the lives of children.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough for all this time. Now, I do hope that when you're ready for this spring, let's market this, that you let us help you get the word out, that you let us, that you call us up, that you get back to us, you work through Joan, yourself. We will have you on, and by then the studio will be, you'll be able to come to the studio, and we'll make a big deal out of it. Another concern that I have, and again, you're going to give your information, and I'm just going to share my own gut, but you can take it to a more, shall we say, informed level. I spend a lot of time in the morning, or when this show starts, Allison, putting this thing in perspective, because yes, it's a dangerous and scary time, but most people are going to be fine, and we don't want them to panic. And I realize that for children, the feeling of insecurity, the feeling of doubt, the feeling of this unprecedented thing must be a lot more petrifying than we know. And if they want to talk about it, parents should be really open and maybe even foster conversation about it. But what would you say from your informed place?
No, I think you're absolutely right that parents and guardians should make themselves available to their children, meet them where they are, obviously in an age-appropriate manner as to how much detail that they give. But I also think that we need to limit, we're in this 24/7 news cycle and access to things. And I think for the health of children, as for all of us, to also limit how much information they are sort of bombarded with.
Yes.
Because it can overwhelm children for sure and add to their anxiety and stress. So I think they're...
No, the reason I laughed is, and it was it was totally real, is my mom made that mistake. My mom and I had a great relationship. This is my biological mom after I went home. And I had asked her during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Mom, do you think we're going to get blown up? Yes.
Right.
I didn't want an honest answer. I remember I went to play stickball with the kids. I says, "We're doomed."
We're in. That's it. So that's why I said it. Age-appropriate information.
No, I was
sure.
Well, I was at the cusp. I think I was 60. I was 12. So
Yes,
it was arguable whether or not you wanted to give me the straight skinny. I think she thought I could handle it, but it didn't go well.
Yes, and that is correct, because every child is different on the amount of information or the type of information
I still remember where I was sitting. Mom, are they going to bomb us with nukes? Yes, I think so, son. Yeah. Allison Lake, she's the executive director of the Westchester Children's Association. I want you now, please, and don't feel you got to rush. I put the time aside. Go over how people can donate, how they can get tickets for your gala, how they can help in any way. The time is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much again for having me on and being so generous in terms of allowing us share the work of Westchester Children's Association. Again, we are a multi-issue children's advocacy organization based here in White Plains. Our work is to keep children at the top of the public agenda at the county and state level. We work with our community partners who offer direct service to ensure that children get the supports they need to be healthy, safe, and prepared for life's challenges. During this time of the corona crisis, we are fortunate to be able to work remotely from home. I urge people to go to our website, wcaforkids.org, where they can find information on our postponed gala, but they can also subscribe to our WCA e-bulletin, which will keep them informed and up to date on the work that we're doing, again, both at the county and state level. That's the best way. If you subscribe to our e-bulletin and our advocacy alerts, you'll always have the most current information that WCA has available. We are here. I think it's important now more than ever to have an advocacy organization to move us through this crisis and beyond. As we spoke about earlier, the crisis has unearthed issues and concerns that we always knew were there, but there's now a light on it, and there'll be an opportunity for us to better prepare, to set up systems and policies to ensure that all children can reach their potential. So thank you so much.
You're welcome
again for having us.
And just if any encouragement is needed, it doesn't seem like it is for you, but I think that this crisis is going to shed a light to kind of paraphrase what the great author said, the great poet. This light, I think, is going to really result in better times for your organization. Thank you very much, Allison Lake. And by the way, I love that name. I mean, whoever, thank your parents for that one, man. If you were on the radio, no one ever forget your name. Allison Lake, Executive Director of the Westchester Children's Association. We really appreciate what you do. We are here, okay? You let us know when you need us.
I appreciate that.
All right,
and
take
we will
care.
be back in touch.
Okay,
thanks
a
so
lot.
Much.
Allison Lake, everybody. All right. We're going to give you a chance to take a break. We're going to reset now. Take a deep breath. Radio Westchester Mornings with Bob Marrone will be right back. It is 8:27, a mixture of sun and clouds. And we are back. I love when the plan comes together. It is 8:30. In a few minutes, we're going to talk with Andy Spano, former county executive. Boy, that was terrific. And the reason we set so much time aside for that, folks, and by the way, we are Radio Westchester. The show is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. We are your radio station at the train station. The reason we did that is and somehow it just hit me in the head yesterday because there's not a lot of room in there. And I remember when I was young and that nobody talked to me about these things. I just sat there petrified a lot of the time. And particularly if you heard it was a virus and people dying and you hear death and dying and death and dying, you know, and I not that I waste time. I spend a lot of time trying to keep it in perspective so that people won't panic. And then I realized I don't know that we're doing enough for our kids. And as you know, I've been ranting about this for 3 weeks now. I did not realize, I mean, I knew we had hunger here, and there are certain, the Food Bank of Westchester does wonderful work, but I didn't know we had so many children that weren't going to eat if they didn't go to school. I mean, I always knew we had lunch programs, but I didn't know the problem was as great as it was. And I keep thinking about these kids and what it must be like. Think back. because most people listening to this program are not children. Think back to when you were young. If you weren't allowed to leave the house and your city, your town, your block, A, looked like a ghost town, B, people were walking around with masks on. Apropos of that, I'm looking out the window. I have only seen, and I left the doorway open, the shade not covered is what I mean. The shade is open. I've seen 2 people today, the lowest ever. So it is what it is. But anyway, so please talk with your kids, help them out. When we start addressing this issue of school hunger, let's all get very real about it. Not school hunger, children being hungry, because, it may sound like I've been hard on the schools, but I applaud them for feeding these children very much. But the fact that it's necessary is what my beef is. Anyway, a couple of other stories I want to update you on before we talk with Andy Spano, and I do want to go to the weather before I do that too. But Westchester, and again, I'm appealing to the adults and the heads of households, etc. Westchester County officials are emphasizing the importance of residents taking part in this year's U.S. Census. The start of the 2020 census count is April 1st, and that was yesterday, and only about a third of Westchester residents have registered so far. Now, we're all guilty of it. You've got it in the mail. It's probably sitting where you keep your bills, and you probably figure someone's going to knock on the door. Well, they don't have to if you fill it out. Please, this matters. And Sean Patterson Howard, you just heard it from Allison Lake. Sean Patterson Howard, the mayor of Mount Vernon, is taking this year's census especially seriously after she says her city was seriously undercounted by some estimates, she said, of 33,000. And we figure that's happening elsewhere also. And I'm appealing to, and we have Latino listeners, even if you are not documented, even if you're here illegally or some members of your family are, okay, still you need to be counted. We need to be counted. So please fill out your census by all means. Some of the other things that are going on, I just want to shout out again to the members of the Young Israel congregation. We here in New Rochelle took a good beating in terms of the press running around here like lunatics. That's their job, no problem with that. But because of the way the press works and the way front pages of newspapers work, we were like, it was the typhoid fever was running around New Rochelle for a while. Now we faded into our rightful place as one of the larger cities here in Westchester, and that has a large number of people when we had the first known case. But now we've settled down and to be just a part of the larger picture. But now, with one exception that's very much on the positive side, that the members, and you remember how it started, the individual was at some conference, I believe, medical conference. The doctor came back, went to his synagogue services at Young Israel, and then after they found out he had the coronavirus, they were like, oh my God, 1,000 people are in the synagogue, or whatever. I made up that number right now, whatever the specific number was. And so a lot of people were quarantined. A lot of people got the virus. His family got the virus. A lot of people got it and were sick. A lot of people got it and had no symptoms or minor symptoms. At any rate, here now, and this is the sweet news about it, I mean, they don't have to do this. I mean, they should be staying in their houses and be safe like everybody else, but they're out there yesterday and the day before going to a kind of the same kind of truck where you would give blood. And they're giving their blood so that their antibodies can be studied for serum. Now, maybe they got asked, but, who says you got to do it? So kudos to Young Israel. And I know even the head rabbi there got sick. We're going to try and get him on and thank him personally. But publicly here we do say thank you to those. Now, a few other things that are going on that I wanted to share before Andy Spano called in. The IRS rule requiring tax returns for coronavirus rebates has sparked a pushback. Lawmakers are criticizing an internal revenue requirement that seniors and other groups file a simple tax return. And that's so they can get, I guess, their name and address in the system. But that is not meeting with good favor among seniors. My guess is the president will address that. Our blood supply is in jeopardy during the crisis. The pandemic is threatening the supply, and social distancing is forcing that. I don't know how we're going to get around that, but I think they're going to need to have a very specific drive to do that. And one other item, some of you, and there's 2 more items here. some of you have noted that, and it is a fact, I have confirmed it, that for some reasons, and I've got to be, it's a little bit off color, but it needs to be said because this is your life we're talking about. Diarrhea is often the first sign of the coronavirus in some patients, and that's what the study has found. And lastly, and this is scary, and it has two sides to it. One side is the governor announced, not the governor, but the fire department in New York announced that their EMS people, if someone has coded, which is to say they flatline in the ambulance, that they're not going to bring them to the emergency room anymore. They're going to turn the body over to the police. Now, of course, it's arguable, but what if they go to the emergency room and they keep trying for 45 minutes? I think obviously they're making a real esteemed judgment that the person is not resuscitable, if you will. But at any rate, that's one. And the other is doctors soon are going to have to make a decision about who they give a respirator to. Someone who is brain dead, perhaps, or has been deprived of oxygen, or someone who has the virus. And I think the way they captured it in the press is, should they have the right to withhold hair from the sickest coronavirus patients? Wow. We will get to that. It's inevitable if we don't have enough respirators, so I don't know how to deal with that. Anyway, in 1 minute and 1 minute only, we're going to talk with one of our favorite guests, Andy Spano, because he's not only knowledgeable, he always comes with good humor, the former county executive and now political analyst. But first, let's take a look at the weather. The weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care facilities. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. It's now 46, a mixture of sun and clouds on the way to 54. But we'll have increasing clouds later in the day. And tonight, mostly cloudy, some scattered showers, 42. Friday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. A high will be 55, the overnight low 41. And on it to Saturday, partly sunny, a high of 56 degrees. And the bottom of the hour is supported by the Beachmont Tavern, pluginvirtualreality.com, Aging Issues Management. Aging Issues Management, you want to go on their website. They have been advising people right through this crisis and taking calls, and go on their website and about how you might want to handle your finances, what's available to you. Give them a shout. Go on their website. They're not going to charge anything for this immediate advice. And plus, as this thing clears up, they may be very valuable to you in planning your economic future. Okay. I've got to clear my throat. You don't need to hear this. But you do need to listen to our next guest. He's the former county executive, served 12 years, held many other offices, was an educator as well. He's now a political analyst. He knows about elections. He's on the Board of Elections at the state level here. He's been a super delegate for those of you who like to throw snowballs at that position. And he's become a friend and just a wonderful guy, but doesn't mean we don't pick on him. Andy Spano. Good morning, County Exec. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Bob.
How the heck are you? Are you still sequestered in the house, and has your wife?
I am more so. I am stuck down here in sunny Florida. I can't get out.
Oh, shut up. It's sunny Florida. Yeah, but has your wife boarded up the door and said, enough, please?
You know, let me tell you. I would rather be under George Latimer and Andy Cuomo than this guy down here.
Oh, what's wrong with him?
I don't have no idea. He's an idiot.
That's good. Hey, can I pick on you for a second? You were an educator. Yes. I don't have any idea. No idea. Triple negative from a former educator. I love it. I ain't knowing what this guy's doing down here. Why he even is here? Because
you know, as you get older, you
cheats
revert
the
back
door.
to your childhood. I am going more and more back to the Bronx as I get older.
I ain't know the guy. All of you guys, forget it. Anyway, but what you know. Of course, a person in that position, even in the worst and best of circumstances, always throws a little politics in it. So one wonders, is he mixing politics with decisions, or is his judgment off? Do you have a sense of that?
No. And at this point, you know, you notice that even the governor, I mean, although he he voices problems and criticism. He tries not to beat up on the president, right? And it's really not a time to beat up at this particular point, because this is so serious, and it requires the efforts of everybody, competent and incompetent. That's the way I see it, competent and incompetent.
Wow, very nice.
And if they're doing it with political motivation, which is hard to really know unless you get in their head, there's no way you can determine that or stop it, and it would be just, I don't know how you could do that under these circumstances.
Nor do I.
I don't know how you could do that, because what was the editorial in the in Boston yesterday? They claim he would have blood on his hands.
Well, yeah, that was no need for that. That was awful. I thought that was awful, and I thought that, you know, the president. Look, he's made some mistakes. He's not articulate at times, but good God, even though there were delays.
Listen. He's not a tough guy. You know, when you look at the way he was brought up, when you look at where he was brought up and what he could say, he's really not tough. He has a facade that I think is breaking down at this particular point. I don't think he's breaking down, but I think the facade is breaking down, because this is real. You can't manipulate it. It manipulates you. It manipulates the scene.
Yeah, and it is and it's a tough spot to be in. It's a horrible spot, because no matter what he does, he doesn't like taking heat. But no matter what he does, and it's not fair, but it's the job. He's going to take heat no matter when he decides to go back to work. He's going to take heat.
I don't think so. I think that if you look at Rudy Giuliani during 9/11, okay,
yeah,
now I was heavily involved in that. Okay, heavily. I mean, we were in constant contact, day to day, helping out, sending things, getting down. I was down there with him 2 days later. There was chaos down there, but his demeanor, calmed everybody down.
Mm-hmm.
You felt there was someone in charge, and he was doing everything he could. As much as I don't like him, okay, he did a great job on that. All right, and that's what the president could be doing. He would have everybody on his side. He doesn't. This is not rocket science. I'm telling you, there is a national emergency plan. You know that? That is a regular route. It's a routine. It's a routine.
Okay, and where is it?
I don't know why it doesn't seem to have been activated. It doesn't seem to. What happens is, everybody's got a responsibility, and it starts locally, okay? And then the feds come in on top of the responsibility, and they feed the necessities. That's it, okay? And everyone gets a way to plan around. Now, each emergency is different, but the system is the same. First of all, this is a big logistics problem in terms of the protections for the hospital workers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
The big logistics, and in terms of the respirator, the ventilators. Okay, who are the best logistics persons in the world?
Well, they're there. They're in the military, by the way. They're
the
best.
American military,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. They probably
the American military, the best logistics experts.
They should have won that first Gulf War. They won it. They won that war. Yeah.
So you put them in charge of the logistics, and then that's off your back. They go out. They know how to find out what everything's needed, and so on and so forth. They tell you what they want. You use your emergency powers. You tell General Motors, build this. You tell this guy, do that. This guy, do that. By the way, a power that the Times reported they have used 3,000 times in this administration to buy military equipment.
3,000 times?
I'm just telling you what I read in the New York Times.
3,000 times they've invoked emergency powers. Okay,
I'm giving you a low number. think it was 300,000. But I'm just giving you a low
no, but
number.
how? But
because
you know
I'm
what?
not sure.
Comparisons. My mother used to say they're odious, but here they're not. How does that compare with other administrations? They probably all do it to some
It's
extent.
about the same.
Okay, that's fair then. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's about the same. This is something they use all the time. They sometimes they don't tell them to make it. They tell them you have to prioritize us before you give to your regular customers. That's
Wow.
why it's used so often.
I see. Again, our guest is Andy Spano, former county executive.
So you get that now and then you give it to the military and they supply. Now that sounds, there's obviously all kinds of nuances over that, but how hard is that? And I used to tell the locals, look, don't expect me for X number, in these little emergencies, hurricanes and things like that. Don't expect me for 3 days.
Don't worry,
4
we
days.
didn't. No, I'm sorry. I throw that in there.
No, because I wait on the state. My guys go out. They're not waiting on the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then the state's not waiting on the feds, and then the feds come in, and you know what you need and how you need that, and then you stay on top of it on an ongoing basis. It's not perfect, but it's a plan. He doesn't see that as his responsibility, and that's the problem.
That's an interesting one.
He doesn't see it, and he's got some things. He likes to be a big shot with all these CEOs and everything, and he doesn't want to move them around and boss them over. He doesn't want to do that. They have a lot of influence on him.
Well, yes, but you have people like GM that push back on him though, and he gave them a hard time. No?
Yeah, that's one. And according to GM's evaluation, they were working very hard on it. They had some problems in how they could do it. They ran into some problems, and that was backing them up a little. So I don't know who to believe, So, and I forget about it. I don't believe anyone who reports anything. And the worst one is China. This reporting, China did this, China did that. Yeah, right. China's a movie.
Well, yeah.
You know what a movie is? It's got sets.
Yep. Yeah, it's really, really true. My guest is Andy Spano. He's very upset. He's very upset and very animated today since his wife has boarded him into his basement down in Florida. He can't get out, so he's going to take it out on us and everyone else. A couple of things.
Hey, by the way, I finished my mask, and as soon as I'm through with my video, I'm going to send it to you.
Please, oh my God! Wait, you made your own mask? Oh, but
I made one for my wife.
Yeah,
and
but
one
you
for
made
me.
it out of Hanes, for God's sakes. You made it out of men's underwear.
Actually, my underwear is better than Hanes.
No, no, because I already told you I'm going to hell for this. If I'm making a mask, I'm making it out of Victoria's Secret stuff. I'm not making it out of Hanes.
Listen, you're kidding around. But if you want an exercise, because I've got a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
If you got a lot of exercise, go on YouTube.
Yeah.
And look at how to make a mask. There are about, I can't tell you how many are on there. Some really good ideas. And by the way, string bikinis are probably one of the best ways to do it, the easiest ways.
I've wanted to work with string bikinis all my life, Andy Spano. All my life, I've wanted to work with them. They're one of my favorite things to work with. Why wouldn't they be?
Anyway.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. You know what I've never understood about we can't get too close to this. But you know what I've always wondered? Folks, I know it's a boy thing, please. We're trying to lighten things. At least I am. You shouldn't, if you're wearing a string bikini and maybe I have to ask this of a woman, but when when they tie it like in a little knot on the hip, well, how are they so sure that knot's going to stay on, Andy Spano? You've been a governor and you've been a big. How do they know?
It's above my pay grade.
So why is a string bikini? I guess because you could tie it. The very things I'm talking about.
No, because it has a good front that fits over the front of your face, and it doesn't have all that extra
Oh God.
extra stuff. I found out, you can't. No, there's a science to this. You can't use men's shorts with a fly, for instance, because your nose comes through.
I'm having this image of you with your nose coming through men's shorts, and it's frightening me. It's frightening me more than the virus. Oh my goodness gracious! Oh, it is.
Listen to me.
You have way too much. Your wife has to let you out. Please, Mrs. Spano, let him out. I'm begging you. Go ahead.
But let's getting serious for a minute.
I'm seeing myself with a string bikini on my face, which isn't necessarily bad. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I digress. Yes.
No, that's it. Now it's days. It's a week since I talked to you last time, and of course I've had a great many conversations with friends and officials, things like that, and the fear is incredible.
Yes.
My grandson, people. You imagine you're a kid, and they give you school off, and why are you off? And then you see the news and everyone's dying.
I don't know if you listened. You know these people. I just had the Westchester Children's Association on, and we were talking at length about that. I remember, and you will remember this too, Andy. You were 40 when it happened, but the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was actually 12, and I was petrified out of my wits. I was petrified during the measles outbreaks and the mumps outbreak. Petrified. Imagine how these kids must feel.
Yeah, well, I was teaching at that time. I can tell you a funny story.
Please do. We need it. We really do, and I appreciate you mixing a little levity with this because people really need it.
So I'm a teacher, and I'm a history, social studies.
Yeah, you reminded us at the beginning of this interview. I know nobody.
So I go in to teach my class, and of course, Kennedy has just made his speech, and they're a little fearful, and they all want to know what happened. And I want to, I motivate, I always try to teach a lesson, So I draw on the board. I say, this is Florida, this is Cuba. So I draw the sort of Florida outline and the Cuba outline. I said, Cuba is only 300 miles, east of Florida, and this is what's going to happen there. And Cuba is attached to the ocean floor by this column of coral, and we're sending frogmen down. They were going to blow up the columns.
You told them this?
Listen to me. And I said, take this down. So they're all writing and drawing. I said, and then we're going to tow it closer to Florida, and so we can keep an eye on it, and then we'll be ready if they do anything. And they're all drawing, and and I look at them, and they look at me, and I say to them, who's raising their hand and saying, what is this? Are you crazy?
Well, they should have. I was
said,
just about to.
I said, why are you writing this down? Why aren't you saying, why aren't you complaining that this is wacky?
No kidding. I was beginning to...
Well, that was my lesson. I said, why are you taking what I say as gospel?
I would have had you locked up right then and there. I said, come in with the net, grab him. I was just going to call your wife on the other line and beg you to get you out to take you for a walk. Put a leash on for social distancing. Find a Johnny Pump or so what was their reaction?
She was laughing so much when I was making these things, because obviously there was a lot of humor that went into it.
Yeah, and you probably ruined her wardrobe.
I really have laid out this video. I'm gonna do it. I have
please send it to me.
Video.
Please.
Yeah, as soon as I get it right.
Former county executive turns women's underwear into masks. Men buy them in droves. And the best thing's a string bikini. A couple of items that were in the news that And I didn't know how to react. Early today, I did a lot of show prep last night. Come back to, and I said, let me see what stories I don't have. And George had announced, George Latimer, one of your predecessors, excuse me, one of your successors. His predecessor immediate was Abraham Lincoln. But anyway, he announced that he's no longer going to give the city-by-city totals, which, in by and large, I don't have a problem. And he said because of the lag, but I know I get calls a lot saying, we don't want to keep hearing numbers, but yet that's what's going on. Do you think it's because some of the mayors were upset? Or if you were in his position, why would you do the same thing?
George is a sensitive guy.
Oh, no, I know he is. Yeah, believe me.
And I think that once again it's false information, right? So you give a number, and then and not only that, it's something that it scares people. It's 2 today, it's 4 tomorrow, it's 8
really
the next day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It scares people.
Well, yeah,
I don't think he might. He called me the other night. Called me about 11:30 at night.
Yeah, he doesn't sleep. It's ridiculous.
And we talked because he knew I had handled 9/11, and he just wanted to talk about some things. And we talked because I know what he's going through. I said, but 9/11 is terrible. There's no comparison between 9/11 and this. I had an isolated situation at the southern part of Manhattan, and I wasn't directly in charge of it. He's got a reality on the ground that's invisible that he can't control. He can't send fire departments down there, and and they do this and they do. He can't do that. I at least knew what my problem was. He really doesn't.
Well, you know what? I think by all accounts, and the way politics is, and County Executive Latimer he knows even people that hate him by their first names, and even they, a lot of these people who would normally be critics of his, are saying he's doing a very fine job, and he is. This is, I texted him in the middle of his show before on something, and he got back. The kind of guy he is. I got a call from Lorraine Carl. We got an answer. Our parks and playgrounds are still open, but
I know that, and people shouldn't abuse that. I've seen that here. These wacky kids who were off from college, started piling on the beaches, right? So the reaction was to close the goddamn beaches. And that was an overreaction, I thought. I mean, if they should just get rid of them, make sure they police it properly, but let people sit 10 feet apart, 20
You're
feet
right.
apart.
And they're closing boardwalks where people can walk along. I think that's an overreaction, too. Just tell them to disperse. We do 50, 60 feet apart or something like that.
Yeah.
Although,
you thought they all the things going on, right?
Yeah.
So I go out once a day with my wife, and we walk in an area about 2 miles. We very rarely see anyone in the walk, and we're not close to anybody. Okay. I walk down. I get downstairs, and there's maybe 10 people sitting around tables talking to each other. And I was really angry. I'm saying, you guys live in the same building I live in. Why don't you take care of yourselves? No masks, no nothing. And then I walked a little while, and then I saw 3 guys sitting on beach chairs, 10 feet apart, talking to each other. Now, they were doing the right thing.
Did you ever think of maybe dropping some lingerie off with them and asking them to join your mission? Give them something to... Do you realize,
I was wearing my mask.
I know. Which one? I can't wait to see. Do you realize I'm sitting here for 10 minutes of this interview. I'm going to get into these other issues, but I'm trying to imagine me wearing a string bikini as a mask, and I didn't have a string bikini, and my wife wouldn't let me knock on the woman's door downstairs.
Well,
I hope not. Good God, but I'm beginning to warm up to the idea. Andy Spano, and this is what people need. You've done the job. You know how difficult it is for presidents, governors, county executives, and we appreciate your advice. But also, people need to understand, that this will pass, that we'll get through this, and most of us are going to be fine, and we need to do all we can for those who will not. But thank you for being.
Thank you for saying that, but you don't want me to tell you what I think's coming.
No, you know what? I know what's coming. The worst, no, we do know, and you know what I likened it to? Did you ever go?
No, but coming after this.
Oh.
After this.
Well, the financial hit and everything. Yeah, sure. But you know what?
After this, people have to be thinking about after this.
I already am.
Two things.
Go ahead.
The economic impact and the possible depression are real. Okay?
Yes.
And not that they'll happen, but there's something you got to think about.
Oh, we all are. I mean, look, I'm in my own business here. The sponsors aren't breaking down my closed door to get in here. A lot of people, we're in a lot of trouble. I get it.
And a cyber attack on top of this.
Wow. Well, that is a possibility, a cyber attack. Yeah, I speak to a security guy once a week, Harlan Ullman, and we talk about that. But people do have their eyes on it. The other thing that's going to follow for sure is certain. Well, you know what? Let me give you my analogy. And I think you've had a hip replaced or a knee or something like that. You know when you?
No. I'm in great shape, really.
Oh well. The shrinks didn't finish their job. But at any rate, the man's making masks out of string bikinis. No, but see, if you've ever gone in for any major surgery, as you lead up to it, it's a mountain you have to climb. And if you have, like a buddy of mine had his hip replaced, and he had to get shots, and he had to do this, and he had to get ready, and he had to be in better shape, and he had to lose weight. And then finally, he has the surgery, and that's the apex. But the apex of surgery is really the next day or two. You say, why did I ever let them do this to me? But then slowly you get better, and slowly you move on. And so, and people need to have that kind of emotional patience in this instance. And, but anyway, I'm going to go. I hope I got to go online and see if I can. I want to make my own mask now. See, what you've done is.
You should look at that. Look at online, because when I send you mine, I want you to give me a comparison between mine and those.
Okay, not only am I going to do that, now that you've challenged me, Andy Spano, I'm going to make my own. And I'm going to be banned from radio for the rest of my life. But I can tell you this much. My nose is not going to be popping out the opening in man's shorts, okay? And with my nose, I may even get an opportunity to do films.
You guys have a good time. Stay safe.
God bless you. And thank you very much, Andy Spano. Please stay well, and my best to your wife. And tell her to yowl once in a while, please. Thanking you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Oh, God, you got to love that. All righty, where are we? Our friends from Choice are joining us, trying to call. I remind folks, it's 9:05. The official 9 o'clock guest is 9:05. Where am I? He's a pessimist. Oh, God. I do love this job, though. And hopefully it means something. This is why they let people in the media come to work, so we can make fools of ourselves. Again, I want to pitching patties. Milkman fathered. Okay. Anyway. All right. I got to get to my next guest. I need to free up the phone and let me see. All right, listen to the music. I got to get organized here. Okay, folks. Our final weather of the day. United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. They sponsor the weather exclusively. Visit uhgc.org. 45, getting up to 54 today. Later tonight, the temperature will drop a little bit down to maybe 40, 42, or 45, in that range. We will have some scattered showers, and they will go on into the morning, mostly cloudy. That rain will end highs 55. The overnight low will be, and let me get this right, the overnight low will be somewhat chilly. Will be, again, 40 degrees. Friday, mostly cloudy, scattered showers, high 55, the overnight low, again, 41. Saturday, partly sunny, the high will be 56. And as we go into the 9 o'clock hour, we wish to thank the people who supported this program. Of course, the United Hebrew, Aging Issues Management. Remember, go on their website. They can help you through this crisis. They advised me on how to go after some of the benefits that I needed, and also as you look forward to the rest of your lives, seniors particularly, but other people, you got to start early. Call them at Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, plug-in virtual reality, and where they make the burger of my dreams, comes with buns. That makes it good too. And we're sorry. And sauteed onions is how I like it. I don't need all the lettuce and stuff. So anyway, it's time for us to go to our next guest. Now, you know, every Thursday we have on someone from Choice. Now, Choice, and particularly as we look at this particular problem, okay, they are the people that help get homeless people off the street, people with drug problems, people with mental illness, people with familial problems, people who've given up on life. That's something they should be very proud of. They work with these people very directly. And so I just got to get this. And my next guest, and she's name is Amy Fleming. She is a licensed social worker and has a passion for using creativity as a way to foster resiliency. She's been with Choice since November of 2018 when she joined the team as a program director for the Peekskill office, which at the time was a storefront located on Bank Street, for those of you in Peekskill. Choice was able to secure and move into its current location in June 2019. The building is the same one that houses Social Security. What a great place to be. Hudson Valley Legal Services are there. Their branch is there in the Department of Labor, just to name a few. This office, a great opportunity to partner with these agencies, and it makes sense. Anyway, Amy previously worked for one of something I really care a great deal about, the Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health, for about 16 years. So she knows of which she speaks. Please welcome Amy Fleming. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Bob. Thank you for such a nice introduction.
Well, but you know what? I'm full disclosure, I always do this. I'm on your board, but the reason you're here and the reason I'm on your board is I care a great deal about what you do, what Choice does. I care a great deal about what you did in your previous job for the Westchester County Mental Health Association. And so I always start out with this, Amy, for people like yourself. What drove you and what drives you to do this kind of work?
Well, there's a long answer and a short answer. I'll start with just the basic. I love people. I love helping people. It was perhaps something that I grew up in. You know, my family was deeply involved with the work of the Salvation Army as I was growing up. So, you know, we were sort of, it's second nature, if you will, for me, just to kind of reach out a helping hand, because we're all in this together, and, you know, one or two missteps and we're, you know, could possibly be in the same boat.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you know people who wound up in the same boat? I mean, I looked at your resume. You know, I've heard about you before you came on. You're very dedicated to this, and it comes, and you, again, 16 years with the Mental Health Association. You obviously, did you, and you don't have to tell us who it was, but did you know anybody who, because I have, in fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, you can't be on your board unless mental illness or some other like affliction has befallen you. So we all relate. Was there someone in your family?
Somebody in my life, a relationship that, so I know firsthand of the devastating impact it can have on daily life, and where sometimes just waking up in the morning is a victory, you know, willingness to put your feet on the floor, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, for those of us who've suffered serious depression, you know, people ask me about it. I'm very open about it. That's why I do this segment of the show. there are always some tics that remain with you. As mine is, I never wake up well, probably never will, and so important is that I have to pretty much plan what I'll do when I get up in the morning because I can't trust how I feel. I'm sure you've heard that many, many times.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
I'm fine
Those
now, but yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, no, those routines are so essential just to help get things moving, and start to move through the day. I think you put it beautifully, but you can't trust how you feel, so just kind of
You know,
kind of lean
yeah,
into the routine and to
yep.
get things moving.
And do
I
what
can
it is you
certainly relate.
planned. And so what I also do is, and I'm only saying this for the sake of relating. Is this is not about what you do, but but again, my relationship to it is intimate. I also, people will see me preparing even the smallest note or a do list because when I get up, I do what I've programmed to do. Not that I can't adjust, that's a whole different thing.
Right.
But in terms of everyday life, if I need to write it down because I can't, I call it like the Wolfman effect. I go to bed not
Yeah.
knowing who I'm going to be when I wake up. But so you're very right. Now, did you deal with depression in this instance in this person, or was it, did they have, and again, these things are intertwined, did they have a medication problem? Were they addicted? Did they just fall on bad luck? Did they have a real bad abuse situation? What was theirs?
Well, yeah, was a perfect storm of things. It was, certainly depression played a big part, and complex trauma. That really, it, you've, some people have can have experienced one that sets in motion a long-term cycle
Oh
of
yeah.
responding, to things that remind them of the trauma. They don't even realize that it's happening. It's just sort of the body remembers, and has a reaction. So, but then there's another kind that's just a whole bunch of little traumas piled up that never get resolved, so that now the person is sort of responding and all different things, and sort of needs to almost begin to isolate in order to in an attempt to limit their exposure to those triggers.
Yep.
But then again, isolation is one of those things that is, can cause a bad spiral for somebody who's struggling with depression. So it's a constant battle, a constant back and forth.
You got it right on the head. And then and the problem with isolation is one of the features of major depression is, for a lot of patients, is the tendency to obsess. And then obsession leads to even to paranoia and just one more comment about me. I remember I had a problem when I kept reading the same sentence in a book for 4 hours. It's now the other thing is the way people look at the world. An analogy that I like to use is for people who have had early childhood trauma or have been abandoned or feel that they have or anything else, they grow up and not even necessarily feeling, they feel bad about themselves, but it's a low level thing. I imagine that they feel, we feel, when I was there, as the Omega dog does. Of course I'm second class, but that's me. Of course, that's me. I'm not, I'm nobody.
Right.
What's that line that the great poet Emily Dickinson said? I'm nobody. Are you nobody too? It's just like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
if you
so
hear it or reinforce those thoughts enough, it just kind of becomes ingrained in the way you experience life.
So now you saw this. How eventually did this person make it through? Or was it a constant battle their whole lives?
It was really a constant battle. There were moments of better managing the symptoms, and that really has to do with those things that we started talking about earlier, Bob. The routine in the mornings to get going, the taking breaks, deep breathing to be mindful and to come back into the present. Because that's part of that mental spiral that we were talking about, is One thought leads to another thought, leads to another thought, and before too long, your head's gone someplace, a trip around the world. And sometimes, and thoughts and emotions are intertwined.
Yep.
So
I used to use a flying analogy. You wind up back in the soup again, which means you're back in the
yeah,
clouds.
yeah.
Now,
Exactly. So taking those moments to come back into the moment, and that's why I think creative activities are so important.
well, we'll get to that,
Because
but wait, because we
yeah,
got plenty of time. No, but I want to focus on what motivated you, because and you may wonder why I'm doing this. And again, I'm talking with Amy Fleming. She's the director of the campus up, and I call it the campus, but the the Peekskill office of choice. And we have a one big one here in New Rochelle, and the headquarters really now in White Plains. And they help a lot of homeless, mentally ill, drug-addicted people get on with their lives, or at least maintain a semblance of it. Is that I've met about several when I was on the board, but here for a 1 hour interview, the people that I met, this isn't just their job, it's their vocation, their true vocation. In other words, this is more than a job to you, isn't it? That's why I'm getting into these details, because it's just you're able to relate to this person. Now, so that leads you to, now where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York.
Oh my goodness, whereabouts? I have family in Buffalo, in Cheektowaga.
Oh, Chickatawaga. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Kenmore, which is just north of the Buffalo border.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they used to live
yeah.
in the downtown on Breckenridge Avenue when I first went up there. You can find any place in Buffalo, folks, if you know where French Road is. That was always
Yeah,
right.
basically exactly right.
That's where you from the airport on in. So, what brought you here? What brought you to Westchester? Love, work, school?
Love that relationship, and that it didn't end up, lasting, but
okay.
I sure did. I stuck around, and because I really felt I was working at the county at the time, and really, felt like I was working with a bunch of people that were of similar spirit to me, really committed to what we were doing and wanting to help people and come up alongside them and help them get out of cycles that, weren't serving them, and that there is really, truly a better way,
Now, did you, back up one more step. Did
Okay.
you? No, but because this is terrific. See, I want people to get a sense for the kind of people that are working at Choice, because we know, and people have been listening to this segment each and every week. They know what you're up against. They know how your caseworkers have to handle 40 at a time, how intractable some of the conditions are, et cetera. So, but yet they've seen and listened every week at the commitment, and you are demonstrating where that comes from. Now, did you go to school with the express intent of becoming a social worker or a psychologist? Did you say that's what I'm going to do because of my aforementioned experiences?
No, when I went to college, I was a literature major, philosophy major, minors in writing and art. So
no, but that makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, I basically, prepared for everything and nothing all at the same time. And when I got out of college, I took a job with an agency in a group home that worked with developmentally disabled with chronic medical conditions. And so that was my, introduction into the world of social work, and found that I really loved the work and really connected with those, beautiful moments is the only way I know how to put it, like seeing the essential and the life, because most of those people were nonverbal. So it was really a matter of taking the time to notice body language or eye contact, or, it was a really beautiful experience. And from within that agency, I then got promoted and took a job as a caseworker. We're doing community care work, and coordinating services and such. So, and that goes back even before the county. So,
Well, you know what's interesting to hear you talk about this. You know, one of the things I've learned being involved with choices, and the word I used earlier applies. Certain things are intractable. Certain types of developmental disabilities, psychologically, personality disorders, people don't so much as get better as learn how to manage life with it. It's like living with cancer or something. And some of the homeless people recycle, they go back, you're getting them on the treatment again. Where does the patience to not give up come from? Because especially, you know, because you have to have that, because as you well know, a lot of the work of choice is helping people maintain as opposed to conquer. How do you manage that emotionally?
I guess what I learned to do was look for the small victories, and because I can't lie, it does get just from time to time disheartening, and if you look at only at the negatives, but the small victories, like perhaps the person, let's say, might relapse, and that could feel frustrating, but instead of 2 weeks on a bender, they came back and tried to readjust after 1 week.
Thank
so,
you.
like,
You've answered something and I wanted you to demonstrate it without being prompted. One of the things that I've grown to appreciate talking with all of you over this last couple of months is that those are victories. That a person who's living on the street for years and years, or suffered from difficult mental illness or addiction, the fact that you are keeping on, and it's like someone, I'm not uber religious, but one of the great things about the whole issue of Christ is when he was taking the cross to Calvary, there was always someone there to help pick him up, even though it wasn't going to have a pleasant ending, and they helped him make it. There's a lot of that to what you do, So, and I just wanted to cover that. But now another thing, and then we'll get into what you do at Choice a little more directly. You see things at their worst: people sick, people crying, people who've lost relatives, people who just can never get over their past. You see people die. You get calls in the middle of the night. What do you do for you? Because when you were talking about those small victories and such, you lit up, your voice lit up. So obviously you're getting, but what do you do for you to keep an even keel?
Well, I'll be honest, a lot of prayer.
Really? Okay.
And, yes. And like I said, what feeds me, Amy, is the moments of creativity and drawing and painting that I mentioned before. It's
funny.
been.
I was going to ask
those
you
are
that.
my two lifelines. Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you do employ your art. Do you read literature? So when I gave you that quote before from Emily Dickinson, the poem I was talking about. That's good.
Yes,
I don't feel
do.
dumb now for saying it.
No.
That's and now do you have a family? Do you have children? A significant other? Is that a part of your life as well, or is it mostly work and art?
Well, and my parents,
good,
my sister, my cousins, we're a close-knit family and share a lot of love, and they've been grateful every day that they're my family.
Isn't that interesting? Your backbone, which obviously you have in great measure, and your commitment to this. You have a pretty good platform that you have a real good foundation. There are many people, and I'm sure many people in your programs who, and I don't mean envy in the negative way, who envy that you have a family life that let you be so stable and giving. My guest is Amy Fleming. She's the director of the Peekskill Office for Choice, a licensed social worker by training, and she's done the real social work for the county and the In many ways, she's been at the Westchester County Mental Health Association, and now she's working for Choice. Let's talk about what your job as the director is. When you wake up in the morning, what are the first things you worry about, and then what kinds of work, what kinds of departments and/or tasks report to you?
Oh, let's see. After I go through routine and get myself there, we have a really great team of care coordinators. And, I would say, I look at my role as sort of combination of teacher and shepherd, trying to, help support the wonderful work that they're doing by providing ideas and resources in the community. When you're in the thick of it, it's, a battle analogy. When you're in the midst of the battle, sometimes when the adrenaline gets going and you're really trying to do something for a person, sometimes you need those, like you say, in the analogy of Christ carrying the cross, you need somebody to just come up and say, like, well, how about this? Have you thought about this? To help out. And I try and be available to troubleshoot. Occasionally, in all the social services organizations in our county, we encounter emotional crisis coming through the door. So I'm on deck at that point. I'm there and present and trying to help and strategize on how to have a good ending.
And that can't always be easy.
Sometimes it's not. It's true.
How many people work for you?
Let's see. I have 9 care coordinators, 1 supervisor. I have a front-end manager that greets everybody as they come through the door and is really sort of a rock for our team. And I have somebody who does program and development for us that, is looking to make greater connections with community businesses and agencies and, handles our social media up there and getting the word out. We also, as an aside, it kind of leads into some of the other things that we do, but she leads the art group. We have an art group on Wednesdays. It's sort of like the paint and sip model of doing it. And we've had a great response from our clients coming through. I've seen one gentleman in particular that had come in earlier in the day, completely distraught by just life circumstances and feeling like, that it was all out of control, and he was not in a good headspace. But he came back and joined the art group, and his whole energy changed about 5 or 10 minutes into the process. He was calm. He was completely focused and immersed in the process and enjoying the moment. Like, you could sort of leave those thoughts at the door and just kind of be in that moment. And, he finished his painting, and then he went and sat down in another room and wrote like 3 poems.
That's
so
kind of nice.
Yeah, he tapped into something for him and he left smiling that day. So, that was a beautiful moment.
You obviously get something that is a hard truth to learn for just about everybody on this planet. Life is, some movies over the years have tried to cover it, the hours, but life really is a series of moments. And every moment that works like that is kind of precious, Amy. How many caseworkers are in the Peekskill office?
Caseworkers, there are 9 of them.
Okay, so you have 9. So that means 9 times 40. How many patients do you have? Maybe more or less than that, but how many patients does your office serve? Or clients, as you call them?
Yeah, roughly 250 plus, or around there.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, do you have some of the stuff that exists in White Plains, or do you have to send people there? For example, the jobs training, preparing for jobs, the food bank. What are some of the features that Peekskill has? Because I would like our Peekskill residents to know that you are there and what services you provide. So, if you would,
Sure.
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we we don't have a food pantry. We kind of share that resource with White Plains when needed. And thankfully, Peekskill itself is relatively rich in food pantry services. So we're able to tap into the one that's under the Choice House. We are beginning the World of Work, vocational training and support program up there. We have our staff, one of our care work coordinators, Sean Culhane, is heading up that effort in vocational training. We have like a computer lab with computer-based training so that our clients can come in and learn new computer skills like the Microsoft suite of Excel and Word, and beef up their typing skills. And Sean also works with them to create and enhance, kind of tighten up their resume so that they can begin the process of searching for jobs. We also in the planning stages, but we're hoping that soon we'll be able to help clients, sort of practice interviewing. That's another component of what we have planned
Now,
for the future.
Do you have people that train people how to deal with an interview?
Yeah, for right now, Sean is doing that on a one-to-one basis.
Mm-hmm.
Our vision, we haven't nailed down all the details yet, but that is we have a person that has expressed interest in coming to conduct sort of mock interviews and then help process afterward.
Mm-hmm.
But that, like I said, that's still in the works. But
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I used to teach interviewing and stuff in my past life. I would be more than willing to volunteer and help in that way.
Oh, that would be wonderful, Bob. Come on up. Yes,
yeah, I definitely
we'll
would.
make that happen.
Yeah, and because there's a way to go about it, and there's a process that most good interviewers use, and then there are processes or false ways, but still you have to deal with it that non people use. What's the best part of the job? Because now in management, you're not always, you're dealing with cases because it's a relatively small shop, but in management, just like everything else in life, you wind up not doing what you started out doing. When I was teaching corporate stuff, when I became the manager, I was in the classroom less. Do you like managing?
I let's prefer to think of it as supporting, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like the supporting. I have more than a couple of years of experience with boots on the ground kinds of work, and so I feel like I like the idea of helping the next, wave of boots on the ground in the work that they're doing, the learning process, and kind of exponentially helping that way. I'm helping the helpers.
I get that. What's the hardest part of the job?
When I pay too much attention to what looks like a step backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's sometimes the hardest part of the job, is that 1 step back. And it probably goes without saying, but anytime I learn of the passing of a client, I I grieve for them. You know,
Yeah, but as
it's funny. Sometimes we celebrate, and sometimes we're the only sort of tether for some of the clients, the homeless clients, for example, um, to life and the good things, and we try and help and nurture and encourage, and sometimes we're the only ones in their life left to grieve for them too when they pass.
that's
That's the
true, and
hardest part.
that's got to be the hardest part. You mentioned something, isn't it? Almost axiomatic in psychiatric social work, psychology, psychiatric work that even people that get well, all the way well, it's one step forward, two steps back, one step, and that's the way it kind of works. So you have to steel yourself for that, I should think, for relapses and reversals. And
Yeah, I think if you look at it this way, like in the relapse, I kind of have to remind myself that relapse is a very real part of the whole stages of change.
yeah, and
And
go ahead, no, please.
no, I mean, you can when I look at it that way, it's look at it not as a judgment in a judgmental frame, but in just a piece of information frame. Then we can help and hopefully get them back into sort of the stage where they're actively doing again, rather than embracing change and health.
Well,
Like I mentioned before, like instead of 2 weeks on a vendor, maybe we get back into the routine in 1 week.
I want to talk a little bit before we move to wrap. The issue of, because we see homeless here, my radio station's at the train station. And we see some
Yeah.
homeless here, not as many as maybe over by Oasis or elsewhere. And again, we're now heading to the summertime, and we'll see more after the crisis is over. What is the dynamic in homeless people who don't really want to get off the streets? I mean, I know a lot of people do, and you do wonderful work, but you also have to deal with some people that, no, I want to be on the street. Do you know what drives them? Do we have any sense or study of why that is?
There's a lot of schools of thought, and I don't know if there's a particular answer to that question that kind of goes across the board. I know, for somebody that has been able to make it on the street, really survive, and it's almost like a point of pride. It's like a skill they have, and so it's hard to. I've known some people it's really hard to make that realization that they can apply that same skill to apartment living. You know what I mean? It's hard to let go of those things that we're proud of if you look at it as saying goodbye to it, rather than like embracing the next challenge with that same set of skills. There's, and there's sometimes just a belief that can't really make it, so why bother? You know what I mean?
Well, I wanted to go down that path with you. I can't really make it, so why bother? A lot of people, and again, there are people listening who have suffered from depression, and they know exactly what we're talking about. And those of you who don't, you just might want to get some insight into this. There is this sense that when one looks at all the times they failed, when one looks at the things they did that they so regret they can barely deal with, it's just easier to stay in the hole, even though it's painful. How do you get people to go beyond that, their previous failures? And how do you get them not to look back and obsess on that? That there are second chances and third and fourth. Once again, I know people know that I'm pretty much an agnostic, but I'm quoting all the, but I have a religious background, and what is it? 7 times 7 people should be forgiven. Well, they should forgive themselves 7 times 7. So
right, and I think it's in Proverbs. A righteous man falls down 7 times and stands up again.
Yeah.
Or I say it, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And I mean, standing up again means paying more, I don't know, acknowledging to oneself the times and places that there's been a good outcome, like, and that's part of the work we do is like, well, can you think of for example, can you think of a time when you were happy? What was happening at that time? How did you get to that point? And sort of like reconnecting the person with that past expertise, that past victory. So helping the client string together those memories, those past victories is
well, that makes a lot of sense. But one of the fallbacks I always have about what you do and even being involved with the board is this, that even those periods that you keep someone, whether it's off the street because they want to be sober or clear-headed, or maybe meeting with family again for however long, those moments are worth everything you do, it would seem to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, my guest is Amy Fleming. As we turn our corner now, we want to look to the future. Amy Fleming runs the Peekskill office for Choice. They deal with the mentally ill, mostly the homeless population as they go through that. They work with people who are in prisons or coming out of prison, get them job training, get them benefits that they don't even know how to apply for in many cases, everything from MetroCard to food stamps. Where do you see First Choice going, and what enhancements do you see to the process and your own career? What do you ultimately want to do, or are you doing it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I am doing it. We started out talking about the role creativity plays in resiliency, that ability to bounce back, to stand up again after falling down 7 times. Like, I continue to find ways to offer that and bring that to the people around me and to the community. If we're all able to be resilient, the knocks are good. The knockdowns are going to happen, but, we can't control the storm, but we can control what we do with the sails. You know what I mean? So if we can learn those ways of being resilient personally and as a community, I mean, that's where my focus is. And I would love to continue to find ways of offering chances to learn that and to exercise that, both for the clients, our staff, our community that we're working in.
Okay, let's take a look at let's take a look at the future and where you're headed. Do you think that we will change with any changes in either medicine, hospitalization, or for that matter, medication that will make a difference and make your job easier?
Wow. I think the most powerful part of healing, or that process of healing, is really has to do with oneself and what the motivation, what motivates it, that learning those things that help keep everything manageable so that one doesn't spin out, you know what I mean? Like being mindful of your own thoughts, so that in monitoring your own thoughts, you can sort of offset any, those trigger thoughts that might send a person into sort of a spiral in their thinking. I think, medication is really helpful in getting a person on the right track, but I don't know that I don't feel like it's the end game all together.
No, it's not, isn't it? It's more like a cast. It's more like a cast than a cure, isn't it?
Yeah, my analogy that I use all the time with my clients is, medication is sort of like the laundry bag. if you're trying to bring your armful of laundry to the washing machine without a bag, things are going to fall through your hands, fall through your arms on the way to the washing machine. But if you put it all in one bag, you're likely to get it to the machine all in one. It's just a useful tool. And if we put it in that perspective, that, it's not the end game in and of itself. It's just another tool to use to help us get and move along. I think that's the key to
Amy Fleming,
better. Yes.
before you go, tell us how people can use your services, and I want you to speak directly to the people of Peekskill who may be out on the street, or who may be suffering, or who may keep falling off the wagon, if it's a proverbial wagon of drug addiction or drinking. How can you help? Where do they go? What website do they go to? How do they get a hold of you?
So, if you're in need or in any way, shape, or form, we're here for you. Not to make it too light a joke of it, but operators are standing by now.
Oh, no, that does work. Operators are standing by now. But no, you can make a joke of it. We needed some light stuff, but I wanted people to get to know what you all do. I'm so proud to have gotten to know you and what you do, and proud to be a part of Choice. So tell people where do they go to the website? What phone number do they call? Operators are standing by now.
Standing by now. Let's see, our number, you can reach us through our number, 914-576-0173.
Give it out again. Second time. Remember what happens when you give a number the first time, Amy, people go rustling for a phone to grab it, and then a pencil, and they don't have it. So give it out again.
Right, so they get the last three numbers.
Yes.
Right. So that number again.
Give it again.
Is 914-576-0173. Our website is choiceofny.org. That's choiceofny.org, all one word. Either of those ways, you will get to us.
Okay, but listen, I can't thank you enough for spending all this time with us today. Once again, folks, the people at Choice are very special people, and continue to do what you do, and please feel free to take me up on my offer when things get back to normal. If you need someone to work with interviewees, it was a specialty of mine back in the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob, so very much. This was a real pleasure.
Amy Fleming, she heads the Peekskill office of Choice. All righty. We have some housekeeping details to tend to, not the least of which is to give the weather one more time and make sure we didn't miss any stories along the way. Okay. First off, the weather, and the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. Well, as promised, the sun and clouds is turning into mostly cloudy now. It's about 47 degrees. Going to get up to 54 today. It'll be a pleasant day. And later on, it's tonight, we'll have increasing clouds and the temperature getting to 54. And tomorrow, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The temperature will be 42. The wind out of the northwest 10 to 20. Into Friday, mostly cloudy, scattered showers again. Getting up to 55, though, an overnight low of 41. Saturday, no rain, but partly sunny. The high will be 56 degrees. The overnight low will be 40. And this morning's program was supported by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.org. Aging Issues Management, and again, they've given us some advice on how to keep our business together here. They can help you with advice. They can also help you plan for your future, particularly if you're looking at ways to, having enough money for retirement or the different stages of retirement, or maybe you have a family member who needs assistance, either senior living or assisted living. They can help you plan that as well. The law firm of Pena and Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, located right here in Larchmont. Pluginvirtualreality.com, and of course, I keep thinking of their burgers. I gotta buy one. Gotta get one this week. We're talking, of course, about the Beachmont Tavern. They always say it's their wings. I say it's their burgers. It's the well-done burger. No lettuce, no cheese. Just give me ketchup and sauteed onions, and I am a happy bunny. We have people to thank. We've already thanked our sponsors. We have guests to thank at the tank, and then to talk about tomorrow. We want to thank Vince Russo, John Bailey. Of course, great call this morning from Lorraine Carl. She asked if our parks and playgrounds are closed. The parks are not closed. Some of the playgrounds here in New Rochelle are, though, and we got to ask the city about that one. We spoke with Allison Lake today. Please, folks, we'll be talking more about that. She is with the Westchester Children's Association. We really want to try to get people to go to the surf club in October and get money for them, and hopefully we'll have less children in need of food and make sure that they have the food if they do have the need. Andy Spano, and of course Amy Fleming from Choice. And also there are some people you don't see, like we got a lot of texts and comments from Anthony today. And again, we're planning another show that involves him talking about what it was like here in Westchester and New Rochelle. And he'll be heading that up, what life was like back in the day. And as we look to tomorrow, we've got Lorraine, but we're probably gonna mess around with the 9 o'clock hour tomorrow. We're gonna try and get Damon Jones on, and also talk a little bit, split that hour up, because we saw one of our top stories this morning was that 23 Westchester County employees, Westchester jail employees, and 6 inmates are testing positive for the virus. What does that mean? What's it like these days to be in a prison? Damon Jones is an expert on that, so we'll try and line him up. Janelle Albritton, Master in Public Health. Steve Callis will talk a little sports. We're probably going to get to Ian Massaro on, talk about some games you might want to play. Al Tarantino, Dr. Victor Sternberg, who has tested negative for the virus. He was with us 2 weeks ago, and he said he's got some people in his office who have it. He is doing fine. And of course, as I said, we will talk with, I did say we talk with Damon Jones and our regular guest. You know him from his playwright days. He's going to be only on for 30 tomorrow. And he is, of course, Richard Cerulli, playwright, author, has plays here in Westchester County. As for the rest of you, yes, we're getting out a little early for just a few minutes early because we have some housekeeping to take care of here. One last look. Okay, nothing really is going to upset the apple cart. So we're done with the news. We're done with today. We will see you tomorrow. I'm Bob Marrone. You've been listening to Radio Westchester. Remember, we have a lot of outlets, and sometimes that confuses people. You want the audio, just go to radiowestchester.com or go to MyTuner Radio, click on Mornings with Bob Marrone. Go to MyTuner Radio, go to Mornings with Bob Marrone, and you're done. If you prefer and you want to watch as well as listen, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope. Also, some of the more iconic spots, we're on Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. We will see you tomorrow.